Ready to boldly go. Let's boldly go where no one has gone before and find out what kind of crew we're going to be getting. Hi friends, welcome to Star Trek Initiative. I am here with a wonderful group of people. We're missing one player tonight, but they will be here next week as we introduce them. So this is going to be so cool. There's some really wonderful people here that I can't wait to introduce to you, who have gone the extra mile. I've seen them talking about characters in our chat and I'm excited. But before that, there are a few things that we have to say. Don't forget to retweet. Don't forget to type in that ! loot to be in the giveaway, as we've already hit the 20 retweets to win a copy of Strange New Worlds, which is crazy because we've only just started the stream. We have got a monthly meat grinder coming up, I believe. I'm sure somebody can throw a link to that in chat. And directly after this show, we have we have Don's show coming up, The Haunting of Seawall Orphanage, which is going to be really, really awesome. Sign up to play the monthly meat grinder this month. I've just seen it in chat. Susie, the wonderful Susanna Grace, is going to be the GM, and you know you want to be in a game with Susie. We have got some fantastic sponsors that I think Past Charlie is going to be telling you about. Fantasy Grounds, I think we're going to be having World Anvil joining us. So let's hear from Past Charlie before we go around the cast, so she can tell us about all of the wonderful sponsors and all of the wonderful things they do for us here at Encounter Roleplay. Past Charlie, take it away.
Before we begin today's show, I would like to take some time to remind you about our sponsors. Fantasy Grounds, our virtual tabletop of choice. All of the beautiful maps and roles you see tonight are done using Fantasy Grounds, which you can try for free at fantasygrounds.com. You can also get all of your miniatures from Wayland Games. Go to waylandgames.co.uk and get yourself a huge range of D&D, Warhammer and 40k minis for up to 20% off regular retail price. And Tabletop Loot, who sell incredible dice. Go and check them out at tabletoploot.com.
Thank you for that transmission, Past Charlie, to tell us about our wonderful sponsors, World Anvil, Fantasy Grounds, Wayland Games, who help make all of this happen so we can have awesome people playing awesome stuff. Tonight we're going to be doing Session 0, character creation. We're going to see everyone's characters. We're going to build them here on stream along with the rest of their crew. But before we get to that, let's go around and talk to these wonderful people that I am lucky enough to GM for. Picking at random, let's go over to Cadet Max. How are you tonight?
Hello. I'm fantastic. I'm very excited to be boldly going. This is going to be a ton of fun, and I cannot wait to make my character.
I've seen everyone's talk in the chats when everything started being put together, and everyone seemed to already have in their heads kind of who they wanted to be. So it's going to be good going from cadets into your officers of Starfleet. Moving round, we have Cadet Jordan. How are you tonight?
Hi, I am really good, really excited. ready to get back into the groove of space adventures. But yeah, it's super exciting.
Awesome. I can't wait to see what your character's going to be. I'm so looking forward to everything tonight. Moving round, we have Cadet Aram, who's coming at us from space, it seems. Awesome background. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you. I am doing well. I am equally excited. I was up until 2 a.m. last night just watching all of the new Picard episodes, just all in a row. It kind of like got me jazzed for it. It's excellent, by the way. If you haven't seen it, it is well worth paying the whatever fee you have to watch it on CBS Access.
I am not caught up yet, but I'm looking forward to it. It shouldn't worry you that I went and watched a whole bunch of Q episodes for TNG in preparation for this.
Not at all.
Not at all. Wild magic surges, chat. All of the wild magic surges. What? And moving around, we have Cadet Darby. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Very, very excited. Yeah. Really stoked to get into character creation.
So character creation tonight then, I guess we might as well just jump into it since we've now met everybody, and I'm really excited. I'm not even making a character and I'm excited. Well, I might get to make one, but we'll do that all together. So everyone, tonight we're using the character creation tool that we do at Modifius, which helps build your character for you. It even gives you a nice little handy PDF at the end. And
Nice.
My Google Chrome decided to close the tab, so go ahead and get that up on my end again. Does everyone have a concept for their character, or have people been leaving little bits out? Have you already kind of decided what you want to do?
Yeah, I have a relatively good idea. I just need to know how the race that I'm playing plays into the world right now.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I play a little bit, so for everyone in chat, I play a little bit loose with canon and time, because Star Trek has got a lot of canon, and there's a lot of timekeeping, and it can get very, very difficult and confusing to figure out where in the timeline you are. So we
Yeah.
tend to just kind of establish that as we go, as it comes up. So whatever makes sense for that, we can kind of work it in, because I find that's the easiest way to do it. And, it's our own little pocket of the Star Trek universe that we have here. So with the character creators up, if anyone's interested in this, you can find it at sta.modifiusapps.hostinguk.org, in case anyone in chat wants to make characters along with us, because that would be fun. The first thing you're going to have to do is select your species. So where do you come from? You have a couple of choices. You can be from one background, so you could be entirely Vulcan, or you could be a mixed species. You could be part human and part Vulcan, or whatever suits your fancy. Or you can randomly roll from one of the three selections, so either from the core book, from the Alpha Quadrant book, or the Beta Quadrant book. So it's up to you if you want to leave it to fate, or if you've got something in mind. What's everyone thinking of doing?
I'm thinking of going half human, half betazoid.
Ooh, okay. Got it. It's always good if there's a betazoid on ship.
I think I'm gonna go very basic and just be a human.
There is nothing wrong with being a human. It's always fun in Star Trek, because sometimes I've had crews of like all kind of non-human species, and then some crews of like entirely human species. It's always really fun to see which way people go in. How about you, Cadet Max? What are you thinking of going?
I was leaning towards Trill.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trill are very, very fun in the game. Depending on whether you're joined or unjoined, there's some really cool kind of talents and traits that you get. And how about you, Cadet Aram? Where is your character from?
I am going Cardassian.
Cardassian.
Yeah, and I figure that like my dad was like or my mom was, broke away and gave secrets to the Federation. So I'm like firstborn Cardassian. I'm the first one to go to the academy, that kind of thing,
Yeah, I like that. That's cool. So your mom basically defected to the Federation.
Yeah.
Do we know why? Is that something that might come up?
because we're Cardassian, right? Yeah, like she knows, and there's a good reason, but she won't tell me because she was sworn to secrecy because they just don't let secrets out, even with their own family. So I don't know. I would love to know what my mom did.
Oh, I'm definitely not writing that down. As we go through it, if there's little bits of backstory that you want to drop, please go ahead and do that. If there's little bits that you'd like to work in to bits in the adventure, let me know, because I'm the kind of person that absolutely loves to drop in those backstory bits and find the ways to work them in. So, yeah, everyone's selected their species on here. Okay, I do have to ask. I told you that your captain would be an NPC, but what species is your captain? Let's see, who am I going to pick to choose this one? Everyone will get a turn to pick some aspects. Darby, what species is our captain?
No pressure.
No pressure. I'm just going to go Vulcan, I think.
Vulcan, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Could be interesting.
So when you go through, you'll see on this page, you'll have a little bit of text telling you about the species that you've selected, and you'll see some attributes there. And depending on what those attributes are, kind of affects your character. So, for example, Vulcans have control, which is all about your kind of fine motor skills. Fitness is all your physical health, your endurance, and they also have a boost to reason, so their ability to use logic and apply it. Does anyone have any questions about their attributes that they've got up? If there's any there that people don't really know what they do, or... If everyone pretty good with what they got?
I'm assuming presence is kind of like charisma.
Yes, so it's your, like, you know, the reputation you have, how well you can kind of command a room. If you're planning to be an officer of a higher rank, a good presence is really good if you're kind of doing leadership and things like that. You'll also get a trait, which is the species. So traits are things that can apply in situations. Sometimes they might make rolling for tests a little bit easier or a little bit more difficult. You know, so if you were a Vulcan trying to apply logic, perhaps it would give you a bit of a boost because you're trained in kind of applications of the mind. For example, Cadet Aram, if you were rolling to look into Cardassian history, you'd probably get a little bit of a boost there because of your Cardassian trait. The other thing it's going to ask you for is it's going to ask you for a talent. So talents are kind of like special abilities that your character has. And there's a whole host of them. Some of them are very general, so they can apply to a lot of things. Some of them apply to specific skills, and the skills in this game are called disciplines, and they're basically the areas of Starfleet. So you have your con, so flying, engineering, command, security, science, and there is one that I'm missing that my brain has just had a moment on. Maybe that was all 6 of them. It was 6 of them. Yeah. So that's all. And medicine. There you go. So medical as well. So have a look through. There's probably a pretty long list of talents. So while having a look, let's go around and see kind of what are people's first thoughts for their characters? Who are we beginning to see take shape? Let's start with you, Jordan.
Yeah. So So one of my favorite ways to make characters is to get a feel for who I'm around first. Just as kind of like, I find as an individual, I tend to gravitate towards certain people. And so I like building kind of after, but kind of what I had in my head is a very quirky, I play quirky characters, very intelligent. She really knows what she's doing, but she doesn't quite have the like guts to be like, that's wrong. She's like, but what if we did this instead? Very timid. I don't really know backstory yet. I like to figure that out after I've built them so that I can take like their personality and find like instigation for like why they are the way that they are and kind of build backwards.
Wow.
But that's
It'll be interesting to know there's a whole bit in character creation that gives you a bit of backstory as well, so that you can kind of define and work around it. Yeah. Do you know what area you might want your character to kind of work in? Like what division of Starfleet they are in?
like talking about like what the role is on the ship.
Yeah, so are you thinking that she's like more command? Or
more engineering.
Oh,
Kinda,
engineering.
she works,
okay.
Yeah. Like she knows how the ship works. She knows what to do with it. Very like mechanical in thought. But I guess more just wherever she needs to be on the engineering side.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of great talents for that. There's the bold talent, which means whenever you use threat, so threat and momentum are like a meta currency that you can earn and spend. So threat is what I get to ramp the tensions up. If you spend threat when making a test with engineering, you can actually buy more dice to roll. There's also one called cautious engineering, which is kind of the same thing, but it's whenever you spend your momentum points. Which sounds like a little bit right. You said like she's very clever, but she's not very daring and bold in doing those. So that might be a good choice for a talent if you want that, and that increases your chances of succeeding on those roles.
Very cool.
Cool, I like it. So I'm seeing like maybe our chief engineer here. Maybe that's who we're looking at. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move around. Cadet Aram. Who are we looking at here? Have you got a talent in mind, or?
I think security would make the most sense, especially considering his mom. Yeah.
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 So
I think I'm going with the name Siltech Knoll. Is what I think I'm going with. Yeah.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
And have you picked a talent already, or are you still having a look through?
Sorry, I haven't picked a talent. One second.
Okay. We've got things like so bold security, so works kind of like the engineering one I just said, but when you make tests for security, if you spend threat, so you give me threat, you get to roll some extra dice. There's also let's have a look. Oh, I'm getting all of the Vulcan ones show up now on my one.
I think I'll take security. It just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If I'm going to be security, I'll take task security.
The bold and cautious ones are really, really good because they apply to like the specific skill that you select it for. So you can either use it to kind of pick a skill that perhaps you're not as good at, but your character's really interested in to kind of bump that up, or you can pick it at the thing that they're really, really good at to really make them experts. So that's pretty cool. Cadet Darby.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about the character that you're making and perhaps maybe what talent you might like if you've picked one.
Yeah, the character, thinking sort of half human, half betazoid, kind of has sort of lent into the whole empath abilities, but has sort of switched recently into going into sort of holoprogramming.
Okay.
And sort of holodeck technology and stuff like that. So kind of, I think for the, what are they called? For the talent, I think I'm probably going to go with empath for the betazoid because it's just sounds really
cool. Yeah, it's definitely their thing. So it's kind of cool. So we've got another kind of techie character as well.
Yeah.
So I can see how this is going. We've got a couple of engineers. We've got our security. So that leads us over to you, Cadet Max. Who are we looking at with your character? Who are they?
So I was definitely initially leaning towards the medical field. Definitely enjoy the role of being the doctor, and I think that's kind of where the race kind of naturally leans towards. And then as far as the talent, I think I'm leaning towards the bold medicine.
Nice. So you're a bit of a risk taker then. When it comes to medicine. I like it. So maybe we're looking at maybe our chief medical officer, because they hold a lot of power on ships. They hold power over their captains even. I've definitely had games where our CMO has had to sign the captain off sick for some strange behavior that happened on planets. So that's kind of cool. And looking at it for the captain, I won't make somebody pick the talents because you can't see them all. but I think I'm going to go with nerve pinch because it's so classic. You can't have a Vulcan who can't nerve pinch. You got to have that.
They
So
make fun of him. Like, you're like, oh, he can't nerve pinch. He has to do it. They all do.
Everyone can deal with the fact that he's, he might not have gone through the Colinar. And I mean, like, mind meld is a talent, but I can't see the captain like just mind melding with everything at a moment's notice, unless it's like a Vulcan Kirk. I don't know. But I like the idea that maybe this captain's a little bit kick-ass. So once you've selected your talents, you can go ahead and click the environment button at the bottom. So regardless of where you come from, Starfleet officers come from all across the galaxy and many worlds, as we've seen with our new Cardassian cadets. Where you grow up, so the environment is about where you're growing up. So you can roll this randomly if you like, if you want a surprise. But if you click in, you'll be able to see, unless you're rolling randomly. So you've got things like busy colonies, frontier colonies, the homeworld of your species. Perhaps you were brought up on a starship or starbase. Maybe your family have had a history of it. Maybe you were brought up on another species' world. So you might be a Vulcan brought up on Earth. You might be a Betazoid brought up in Andoria, for example. So this is going to reflect a little bit. You'll see that there's a list of attributes. So these are the attributes that it's going to give you a little bit of a boost to, depending on where you pick, as well as your disciplines. It's going to give you a choice which ones it kind of affects. So that's worth having a look at as well, and thinking about, why did your character grow up where they were? Is that because your parents chose to live there? Did you move there at a very early age and that's where you spent most of your life? There's plenty of other species as well to choose from if you like. I don't know what all of them are the homeworld for, but we'll get there. But it's good to have an idea of perhaps what your life was like there, how that impacts you. What did that do to your point of view? Did you like growing up there, or did you not? So let's go round. I think this time we'll start with Cadet Aram. Where did you grow up?
I grew up on Earth from a very young age. I was 3 when we left, so I have some memories, like some flashes of memory of home, but Earth is home.
Okay. So did you like growing up on Earth, or were you a bit disconnected there? Did you not really understand why you couldn't go to... Is Earth, do you consider Earth your home? Or is Earth
grew up in a stunning place. We grew up in Montana, and it was just so gorgeous. And I remember, I remember our world, but there was something about the greens and the lakes and the weather and the crispness that it just was a perfect place for me to grow up. So I loved everything about Earth. I was in love with Earth, but everyone treated me horribly. Like the other kids did, the other parents did, sometimes the teachers did. I always had to prove myself everywhere I went. So I had like a love-hate of it.
Okay.
And my mom never trusted humans.
So like you really loved the environment you were in, but it was very difficult to adjust to the people, or they found it difficult to adjust to you. And I'm assuming that in Montana that perhaps you were quite close to a Starfleet base or an academy or something, and that's kind of where you got in there. Awesome. So if you just select that one, and then we'll go through to all the other little bits and pieces on there. Awesome. Cadet Darby, where did your half-human, half-betazoid grow up?
I'm thinking on an isolated colony.
Okay.
Interesting. Perhaps somewhere that was a little bit exclusive. Yeah, I quite like that. Perhaps
is this exclusive as in it was like a colony that was maybe experimental and you had to there was only limited space, or is this you came from a wealthier, better off, maybe higher stationed family, and therefore you had a kind of a colony world that perhaps you were living on that was a little bit nicer?
Yeah, that kind of thing. But sort of quite absent parents, kind of sort of, put him in the nice colony, and we'll see him when we see him, or we're off doing whatever it is we're doing.
So what did your parents do? Were they maybe diplomats? Did they work for Starfleet?
Yeah, I think sort of diplomats.
So they did something. They held a reasonably good position in order to get you in there and kind of set up a life for you. That's really cool.
Yeah, but sort of left a little bit, to my own devices a bit too much, and
They were away a lot, in other quadrants, doing other things on other planets, and interesting.
They've got the report. It happens.
Cadet Max, what environment did you grow up in?
My head is leaning towards potentially growing up on Earth, having his parents been there for some time and then had him. But my imagination is just telling me like he was a bit of a little troublemaker as he grew up, and thus was like he tended to be really rowdy, maybe get in a few fights as he got older. But the one sentence that keeps sticking in my head is that at some point he found that medicine was a lot more fun than fighting. And so that just kind of solidified as he grew up and was like, that's what he wants to do.
And is that how he kind of entered Starfleet? Is through the medical route there? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got two people growing up on Earth. We've got somebody growing up on an isolated colony. Darby, just have a think about perhaps the exact position that your parents held and maybe what the name of that colony was, and let me know later on. And I wonder, Max, Aaron, did you both know each other? Are you similar in age? Were you perhaps together at the academy, maybe?
I don't know how Cardassians age now that I think about that.
Yeah.
Like, is it roughly human? Do we live longer? I'm trying to remember.
I honestly don't know.
I don't remember.
I'm sure someone in
Okay.
chat will tell us. But have you two met before? Is what I'm asking, because you've both grown up on Earth. You've both gone to Starfleet Academy, presumably on Earth. Was that within the same area? Did you know each other before you became crewmates on the Initiative?
I mean, yeah, we had to have, absolutely. Like, we had a class together, and either I was awful or you were awful. Like it was probably something you were really interested in. Like, what would a class that your character would be super into?
Oh, like a xenobiology, I would assume, or I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. I spent the entire time just researching ways to kill every creature. That's the only thing I was interested in, and you just wanted to pass the class.
Yeah,
I imagine this is like one of those kind of, it's like the entry level class, because obviously as a Starfleet officer you have to be well rounded. So as security you have to go in to understand this stuff, and perhaps Max, your character, would have gone on to delve deeper into that for all the medical studies behind it. So that's how you two know each other.
And I would just as soon as I got to my way to kill it, I would just write dead across the page of that animal and flip it angrily and go to the next one.
I imagine perhaps you were sat next to each other. You had to watch him do this, paying no attention. There's a bit where you have to team up and talk to each other, and just sitting there crossing things out. I like this. So moving around, Cadet Jordan, where did you grow up? What environment did you grow up on?
I am really liking the concept of growing up on a ship, just because she is so. I think she's highly focused on like I said, like the engineering aspect of ships. And so like I imagine her, being very young and very comfortable in that setting, in that place. And like anytime she's outside of when she feels very out of place and is very uncomfortable and doesn't quite know what to do because she's just so comfortable there.
I'm imagining a little bit of like a Wesley, perhaps a parent or a family member was on a ship, and that's where you kind of grow up on maybe one of the bigger like Galaxy class vessels that's a little bit more stately, where you could have families and stuff aboard. That's pretty cool. Maybe is that where your love of kind of engineering came from? Maybe was it a family member who was an engineer? Or
I think that her perspective of everything that creates the vessel that takes us places is sentient in almost a way. So like she'll talk to whatever she's working on, whether it be the ship as a whole or bits and pieces of it. And like she's almost like a spaceship whisperer.
You very much
course.
personify the ship a lot.
Yeah, she
Oh.
sees it as an entity, not only as a whole, but like each of the individual pieces, just like each person in a community creates the community as a whole.
So the ship is like her own little crew of all these bits and transformers and
Oh, yeah.
nacelles. They're all kind of her domain. That's
They're her
pretty cool.
friends. Like
What is the one thing? You were a kid on this probably huge galaxy or constellation class starship. At some point, you were allowed to go somewhere, or you went somewhere that you weren't supposed to, but you got to see something really cool there. What did you do? Were you allowed? Did a family member maybe just let you have a peek in the door? But I imagine that you've been somewhere that you shouldn't have technically been, and it's kind of helped that spark.
I think that, she's very kosher to go by the rules, but I think that she definitely accidentally gets herself into places that she's not quite supposed to be. So I feel like she was maybe trying to get to a certain part of the ship and ended up going the complete wrong direction, and ended up kind of getting a chance to, like you said, like peek through a door of like into kind of where people were actually working on the internal of the ship. Because like when she was younger, like, yeah, I mean, that like there's other stuff going on beyond the walls, but like with very like childish naivety, like you don't really know that how much there is, like how big the world is, how big the ship, how intricate everything is. And so I think that she got to peek in and definitely got caught because that's not her forte. It's doing like breaking rules.
Maybe maybe there was a refit and you got to see some of and kind of as you're leaving the ship, they've already started dismantling bits, and you perhaps found your way into a corridor where they'd been taking parts of the ship apart, and you got to see all these internal workings.
Yes.
Okay, and all we have to do now is for our Vulcan captain. Where did this Vulcan captain grow up? Let's see. Cadet Max, what do you think? Did they grow up on their home world, a colony, a starship, or another species world?
I think they would have grown up on a colony.
Okay.
Maybe a frontier colony.
Okay, we're going to go frontier colony. So once you're through into this screen, it'll give you a little bit of description and flavor text again about the selection you've chosen, and you'll get to pick an attribute to increase. So for the Vulcan captain, I have control and fitness. And I think for a Vulcan, it's probably appropriate that we have control. They have got a lot of, control over their mind and their bodies as well. So if everyone wants to select an attribute, if you're not sure what it does, just give me a shout out and I'm happy to tell you. But they should be mostly self-explanatory.
I have two choices, insight and reason. I'm not sure what the...
Yep. So reason is about logic, so learned knowledge and how you apply that and how you learn knowledge. Insight is more about your kind of intuition. So it's kind of like in D&D, if you make an insight check, it's more about understanding exactly what's in front of you and how you're interpreting that kind of on the fly, as opposed to using kind of some previously learned knowledge.
Awesome.
It'll also ask you to select a discipline. So like I said, these are like the areas of Starfleet. So for example, for a frontier colony, I have the option of con, medicine, or security. And again, it's worth bearing in mind, although your character might be, for example, Cadet Jordan, you might be the engineer. It's likely that at the academy, you didn't just study engineering. You would have done a couple of other bits as well, and you'll see that later on when you get to pick your academy tracks. So it's always worth thinking about if you put stuff all into that main thing, or if perhaps you want to make a character that's a little bit more general. Totally up to you. But I don't know what everyone's choices are, but what is everyone kind of going with here?
I mean, I think that my character's obsessed. That because of all the difficulties and all the otherness, he felt he had to be the absolute best at something. So he was going to be the best security officer. So he focused everything in that.
I wonder, is there a little bit of that? Because he hopes that maybe by doing that, he'll discover why things happened and what happened. Because as you're working
100%.
up, you get access to those secrets. You know what's going on. It's kind of cool.
He's tried to break into a databases. He does not have the security clearance. There's a level he has to get to, and then he can get access to that database.
Okay, so we got a little bit of motivation there behind perhaps what he wants. Cool. Darby, which attributes and disciplines have you selected here?
I've selected insight and engineering.
Oh, okay. So still kind of going on that, the empathy side of things and the kind of the tinkering. I get the feeling your character and Jordan's are going to be very good friends aboard this ship.
I think so.
And how about you, Max? What have we got here?
So I chose reason and medicine, very much focusing on the anatomy of many different things and highly wanting to know as much as he can about all of that.
Yeah, so we got a very bold but very studious character. Okay, and Jordan, what have you gone for your engineer?
Okay, so I went ahead and went with control for the attributes because it was between control and insight, and that one just felt a little bit more right. And then engineering. She's one-track minded. I think that she definitely had some other things that intrigued her, but like ship is life. So
So that's where she kind of put all of her focus.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, she's obsessed with it. It's its own. It's like a boyfriend.
You're giving me like real like Scotty from TOS vibes. Like when he got told off and he's like, "Oh, I go and read my manuals now." Like
Yeah.
I imagine like that's her kind of thing. Like if she gets 5 minutes, she cracks open the Starship manual and she's looking through any updates and
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, the last thing this page is going to ask you for right now is a value. So values are really, really important in Star Trek. As you'll see, the value is about how your character sees the world, the way that they feel things, but they're also important mechanically. So you have something called determination, and it's a currency that you can spend. You get a very limited amount, and you can basically use it to really increase your chances of succeeding, more than momentum will do, or you can use it to add things to a scene as well. And it's also how you gain determination back. So your value might put you in a little bit of trouble. So for example, if you're a Vulcan, it might be the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, but then a loved one is in danger. So I could maybe go, you have to go against your value, and I'll give you determination for that. And you'll get to have that in order for something to go wrong with that value. You can question your values at any time. You cross them out, and that means at the end of the session you have to figure out what's changed. So they are dynamic as well. They can change as the game goes on, as your character has different experiences, perhaps their viewpoints change. I've had it before where players have had, I think it was one character kind of had an issue with how another species dealt with diplomacy until they had to be involved in that, and it completely changed their viewpoint of how this worked. So something that is very reflective of the way your character thinks and feels based on the upbringing that they had in this environment and kind of what that means for them. How does that come into it? So for example, I think for our Vulcan with the Frontier Colony, it's probably going to be something about kind of, learning the culture of all of these other places, maybe not being able to understand all of the emotions and all of the culture of some places for logical reasons, but understanding there is value in those. So that would be kind of one of their values. You can shorten this down to anything that makes sense to you as long as you know what it means. If you get really stuck, I think you are able to skip this and add them in at the end. Looking at quotes can be really good as well, so we can always add them back in later. But they're very much a personal thing for your character, and they're very important. So have a think. I'm going to put the one in for the captain, because, and it's going to be. I don't need to understand reason, but I understand there is value. Because I think having that upbringing away from Vulcan is maybe, it's a bit like Spock. He kind of doesn't really know why the humans do some of the things that they do, and he recognizes that doesn't always matter. It just matters that it does matter. So has anyone got a value that they've kind of come up with? I know these ones are a little bit trickier. Has anyone got one they want to share?
Yeah, I'm in. My mom spent so much time lying to me. I still don't know if half of the things she told me are true. And it was always a game with her, because she wanted me to lie, because that was our way. We would keep secrets and we would lie. That I hold truth above everything, and I will go out of my way to always to always speak in truthful ways, and not to be seen as someone who would not do so.
So your value would be something like truth above all other things.
I always tell the truth.
Okay, that's a pretty solid value, and it'll be interesting. I think that one in play is gonna, because there's always difficult things come up with the truth with Starfleet. Has anyone else come up with their value?
I think my character would be very much, I'd say close to a perfectionist. So wanting to make sure that all of the medical procedures that he knows goes right. He will do everything he can to make sure that not a single stitch is out of place, that he understands as much as possible. So obsession almost, or yeah, maybe like an obsession almost to the point of maybe occasionally or sometimes neglecting himself.
Okay, so it's almost like medical perfection is the most important thing. That's a really cool value to have, because it's, I think, for somebody who is so very clearly very bold and very, brash, I guess sometimes, that is the thing you want to get right, even at the detriment to yourself, but never at the detriment to somebody else. So
right, yeah,
I really like that. How about you, Darby? Have you got a value? Have you got any thoughts around it?
Yeah, I think so. So I think with the background and sort of growing up the way he did, spent a lot of time sort of having these empathic abilities, but not really understanding them necessarily, and spending a lot of time alone as well. Sort of getting into like holo novels and just, stories, lots and lots of stories that he puts a lot of value on people's stories.
Okay.
Everyone has a story, and that every story is important.
That is a brilliant value. Like, I like the idea of that. Everyone has a story and all of the stories are important. Perhaps you'll vibe quite well with the captain then, with that kind of, I don't have to understand why, but I understand this value. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, quite a similar place.
Yeah. Jordan, how about you? What's your character's value based on kind of what they had from growing up?
Okay, so thing real fast. Sometimes Jordan doesn't quite understand, talking about myself in third person, like exactly what I'm looking for. So sometimes I have to meander to that point. So help me if I'm not quite speaking what I'm supposed to be looking for. But I'm thinking, I don't know her exact one yet, but I definitely think that it has to do with like that technology is more reliable than not technology.
Absolutely have a value that's like, I can rely on technology more than people.
Yeah, I was like, because I see her as more trusting. Like if someone walks up to her and doesn't have like something that's not them to prove, then I think that she's very hesitant and doesn't, I don't know, I'm gonna go over here and look at this because I feel like this might answer. So
I have definitely had characters who have had values like, I prefer starships to people. So, you rely more on technology than people is a perfect value. Values don't have to necessarily even be like a positive outlook. It could be a, you know, a vice that your character struggles with, if it's something that you want to bring up in the campaign and kind of try to overcome or explore. That's cool too. So if everyone wants to just type roughly in what they wanted for their values, we're going to go to upbringing. So this is about not just where you grew up, but how you grew up. Apparently I have to select a discipline first. So I'm going to go ahead and hit click con, because I think our captain should understand how ships work. So you can randomly roll for your upbringing if you wish, or you can select it. So you have a few to choose from. There is agricultural or rural. So you grew up perhaps on a colony or in a place, on a, you know, a farming colony, or somewhere that just wasn't a busy, bustling city. You have an artistic and creative background. So perhaps you grew up surrounded by the arts. Perhaps you grew up in an area that was very, very big on culture and that kind of thing. Perhaps you know, that could even be to do with your parents or the people that you were around, the friends that you had. We have business or trade. So maybe, you know, you grew up with, there was a family business. Perhaps you grew up in a place that was big on trading. Perhaps it had a lot of, you know, a lot of merchant class. Diplomacy and politics. So Darby, this might be something good for you if your parents were diplomats. So you grew up in a world or in a sphere where diplomacy and politics were very heavy. That could be that you grew up with family that had very heavy political opinions, or were involved, grew up somewhere that had a lot of diplomacy happening. It could be that that is like a role that somebody close to you had, and that's why you know so much about it. You've got science and technology. So you grew up perhaps, for example, on a planet where you had advanced tech, so like a frontier colony that's always getting the newest stuff. Or you grew up around people that were interested in it. And you also have Starfleet. Perhaps you did. So Jordan, this might be one for you if you kind of grew up on a starship. You didn't just grow up on a starship, but you were brought up with the values of Starfleet. Somebody was there to kind of instill that in you, or perhaps you were fascinated by what these people did off out in the galaxy, and that's kind of the upbringing you had. So select one, or you can roll at random, totally up to you. But it's worth thinking about. Again, you have a choice as well. You can accept or you can rebel. So if you decide that, yeah, you know, for example, Darby, my parents were diplomats, but I don't want that lifestyle, you can actually select diplomacy and politics and choose to rebel against it. And whether you accept it or rebel it will give you different bonuses. So for example, if you accept a Starfleet upbringing, you gain a bonus to control and fitness, because obviously you've had those things instilled in you. They're very key things in Starfleet. If you rebel, perhaps you do a little bit of Captain Kirk in the Abrams movies, you get daring and insight. So you're more free thinking for yourself rather than what someone's telling you, and you're more willing to kind of risk things and go out there and perhaps not always stick to the rules. But so it's worth thinking first, not about whether or not you liked your upbringing, but what your upbringing was. So based on what we've already said about kind of your characters and their history, and then decide, did you accept that upbringing or did you rebel against it? Has anyone got an idea of what their upbringing is and how they feel about it? Go on then, Aaron. What upbringing have you got?
I have diplomacy because my mom would have been a spy, right? But I rebel against it. So I focus more on security and physical and fitness, and like the earnest decency of those things, as opposed to her schemes and, you know, everything else.
Okay, so go ahead, click into there and click that you're obviously you're rebelling against that upbringing. I've just noticed I've mentioned the Kelvin timeline, and now chat is talking about the Kelvin timeline. We're not in the Kelvin timeline, I promise, don't worry. How about you, Darby? Are you going for diplomacy and politics as the kind of upbringing, or have you gone for something else?
Yeah, I think I am going for diplomacy and politics, but I think my character probably accepted it as, you know, something that's necessary. especially being where he was in that colony, especially if it was a bit hoity-toity, a bit, you know, even if you just have to play along, just to.
So you kind of leaned into that lifestyle, and into that upbringing. I like the idea that perhaps it's a bit more through necessity than because it's what you wanted, but you did kind of accept that it was a way of life.
Kind of a people-pleasing thing of, you know, this is the path of least resistance for me. You know, I'll just go along with it for now until I can get out, and that's fine.
Yeah. So you don't have like an active problem with it. It's just it's not really what you want in the long term, but you're happy to kind of accept it, and that's really cool. I like that take. Jordan, what are we looking at for you for upbringing?
So I think as long as it aligns with my value, she will not rebel because she does like the rules and the stability and things like that. However, the minute it's a little complicated. She's not going to rebel until it goes against her value. So I'm going to put accept.
Okay, are you going for Starfleet then?
Oh yeah, sorry, that's important.
That's okay. So this is more about in the past. It's not necessarily about where you are now. This would have been kind of, if you think about when you were younger, perhaps, like before you would have gone to the academy, what your upbringing was. So you were brought up with Starfleet values. You were brought up understanding what Starfleet did. So that's pretty cool. And Cadet Max, what kind of upbringing did you have back on Earth as this kind of rowdy, but really caring medical doctor?
Yeah, I know. I picked science and technology. I think he grew up with it, and probably I would say maybe rebelled against it a little bit because it was so. His parents or his family were so engrossed in it that it almost became. He saw it a lot, and so I think he would have rebelled a little bit against it, and until. A certain point, but I think for a while he was like, nah, I've seen this too often. I'm good.
Okay. So then before we go through and talk about what comes up with that, what upbringing did our Vulcan captain have? So we've got Starfleet, science and tech, diplomacy and politics, business or trade, artistic and creative, or agricultural and rural. So we knew they grew up on a frontier colony. So I think that perhaps artistic and creative and agriculture and rural are maybe a little bit out. And we're looking at probably the last four. Who hasn't picked something for the captain yet? I've already lost track. I'm too excited. Here we go, Jordan. So business or trade, diplomacy and politics, science and tech, or Starfleet.
Okay. Wow, this is a lot of pressure. I don't know.
There is no wrong answer. Think about maybe,
good.
You know, how do you see your captain? If you were to ask your character, you know, the captain that she serves under, presumably you get along. What does she think of their upbringing?
So probably, I'm sorry, can you read them again? I'm not good at doing things. I need to, visualization is hard for me.
Okay. So you've got Starfleet. So perhaps being on a frontier colony, it was a Starfleet colony that perhaps housed Starfleet officers. They brought up around that. Science and technology. So maybe it wasn't necessarily straight up Starfleet, but being a frontier colony, they had all the latest stuff. Diplomacy and politics. So maybe this was, you know, a frontier colony established around diplomacy and politics in the area, or business and trade. Perhaps the frontier colony saw a lot of business and trade. This is kind of what they knew growing up.
Let's do the Starfleet one.
Starfleet one, okay.
Because it makes sense in my brain.
So when you click through into this, you will see it'll be accept or rebel, and I'm guessing we want our captain to accept Starfleet, right? Wouldn't be a bit weird if we had a Vulcan that joined Starfleet and kind of rebelled against that upbringing. So you'll see you'll get a bonus to some of your attributes, and then you'll get to select a discipline to bump up a point into. So it's totally up to you what you want to pick. It's worth noting, so for the engineers, things like engineering is very important. Science can also be kind of useful for some aspects of that. There is a bit of crossover. Or con, if you want to know how to not just fix the ships, but kind of fly them and use ship technology. Con is used for that. For our wonderful doctor, things like medicine and science can be very useful. Things like command also can be, if you're planning to actually be like the CMO, the Chief Medical Officer, having a little bit of rank, having a little bit of leadership. For Jordan, so like I said, engineering and science are very useful. There's a little bit of crossover with con as well. And for security, obviously security is very useful. Science might come in handy if you're looking for like specific systems, or even engineering or con for actually kind of using ship security systems. So it's worth taking a look at those as well. We don't have any set, apart from some attack stuff, there's no really set to do this one thing, you must use these two things. If you can justify it, like using fitness and command to do a thing, you can. I'm happy for you to mix and match these up as they make sense for what you want to do, even if it sounds a bit crazy. So go ahead and select the bonus to your discipline, and then you get another talent, which is pretty cool. There's a whole bunch. It's worth thinking about maybe with this upbringing, you know, what did you kind of learn from that maybe has helped out. So you've got things like, so you've obviously got the cautious and bold ones again that you can take for other disciplines. You've also got things like collaboration. So whenever somebody else is trying to do something, you're able to go in and help them with that. They get to use your discipline score. So, for example, if you're the doctor and you're on the comms to somebody and they've got someone that they need to patch up, you can help them do that, and they get to use your medicine score and one of your focuses, which are kind of like specialties. So collaboration is really useful, depending on which you want to take it for. It's worth maybe coordinating who's taking what as well. You've got some general stuff, so things like dauntless, resisting being intimidated, field medicine. Mean right hook might be a good one for you, Aram. Unarmed strikes to gain the vicious damage effect. So you've got some general stuff as well.
There's a Cardassian one though, duty and discipline. I gotta take it. It's fantastic.
There's one called technical expertise. So when you actually use the ship assists you in doing stuff. So if you're using the sensors, you make the roll and the ship actually can add to your successes. So you've got some of those as well. You've even got things like supervisor command. So you get crew support, which is like supporting characters you can send off to do things or come with you on missions. You can kind of bump that up a bit. Or you've got things like studious, so that you can actually spend the momentum, that currency I told you about, to ask me things about what's going on, and I have to be truthful and tell you. So you hack into the systems and you find, you know, there's a report and you go, okay, what can I learn from the report? Or does the report show this thing? And I actually have to answer if you spend momentum, and that kind of lets you ask an extra question, essentially. So it's worth having a look through and picking a talent. Has anyone picked one out already? Aram, I heard you talk about one. What have you got there? I think you're muted.
Sorry. So when
That's okay. I'll do it at least once in this stream.
I picked duty and discipline, which is a Cardassian trait, and when the character assists a superior, the superior gains a bonus momentum.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's really useful. That's momentum that can buy extra dice. So maybe you get on very well with your captain. I'm sure if you end up with your captain on an away mission, that could come important.
And I just buy into the whole rank and file thing. So I'm like, you know, I am dutiful. I pass information up to my superiors. My job is to make them look good and get the job done. So it fits.
Awesome. Has anyone else selected a talent? Max, have you found one that you like the look of?
I'm leaning towards, I feel like field medicine would be a good choice. I think because he's so focused on that perfection that we had discussed, I think he feels confident. He feels confident enough that he can attempt to do most procedures almost anywhere, I would say.
Yeah. So for the people who are watching, field medicine basically means that the test doesn't increase in difficulty if you have to perform medical procedures without proper tools or equipment. So you can't get back to the ship to get to medbay, to get a hold of all the fancy stuff that you have there. You just got to patch somebody up down on this planet with no access to anything except the small med pack you have. You can start doing much more complicated procedures with much less risk. And I feel like maybe that's part your persistence in becoming perfect at doing what you do, but also the boldness, the daringness to say, yeah, I can do this. I'm good at this, and I've trained for this, and I'm not scared of having to attempt this without the right stuff. So I think that's really cool. Jordan, have you got talent yet?
Yeah, I think I did. So I talked about how she's kind of, I have to explain this. She is hesitant, like in speaking to people, like she's a little bit more timid. However, she would love for everybody to understand how great technology is. And if everybody understood technology, maybe she wouldn't be shy. So I chose, first of all, I chose Khan because I think that with her perceiving the ship as an entity, she would want to communicate with it in some way outside of working on it. And so I think that like actually navigating the ship was a really cool way to do that. But I chose the collaboration con for the sheer fact that if she can get over her anxiety, she loves to help. All she wants to do is help. She just wants to help how she perceives it.
See, I told you I'd do it. I was muted then. I like the sound of that. And how about you, Darby? What talent have you gone for?
I'm thinking advisor might be quite interesting.
Okay.
Or perhaps not necessarily liking the whole diplomacy and all that lot of the upbringing, but knowing how to use it, especially in conjunction with sort of empath abilities. Or just sort of having that up their sleeve of being like, well, I know how people work. So
being able to kind of subtly influence that.
Yeah.
I like it. I like that perhaps that's some of that diplomacy and politics background coming out, kind of knowing how to talk to people and how to suggest things. And I like it. I think for our captain, I'm going to have to go for something command-based. Let's have a look. I think I'm going to go with collaboration command. I like to think that this captain has definitely, with what you've picked from growing up and Starfleet values, they see the value in working as a crew. So that might be useful because it means that they can lend you their discipline and a focus, which is what we get to. So focuses are really cool. Focuses, where talents are like special abilities, focuses are your special areas of knowledge. And what they do is they increase your crit range on a test. So when you roll in 2d20, you add one of your attributes to one of your disciplines, and that gives you a number. And you roll 2d20, sometimes more dice if you buy them with that momentum I mentioned. And any dice that rolls equal to or under that target is a success. And you need enough successes to pass the test. And if you roll a 1, you get 2 successes on 1 dice, which is pretty cool. So it's like rolling a natural 20 in D&D, right? But what focuses do is they mean that you can roll that critical success on more than just a 1. So, for example, let's say, Jordan, you have a focus in, let's say, warp core technology, for example. And you do a test, and let's say that your score for engineering is 4. If that test that you're making to maybe identify what's wrong with the warp core, and one of your dice rolls a 4, normally that would just be 1 success, but because you have the focus, that's now just like rolling a 1, so you get 2 successes. It boosts your crit range, and it means that when you're rolling and making tests on subjects that you are really good at, the chances of you getting more successes, which means passing the test and gaining momentum, you do even better at it, which is pretty cool. So you now get to pick a focus relating to the connection that you have with the upbringing, and covering a skill that you learn. So there's some suggestions here. So for Starfleet, it's suggesting things like astronavigation, composure, hand-to-hand combat, hand phasers, so types of weapon can also be a focus, so it might be good for you, Aram. Small craft, which can be useful. Starfleet protocol, so knowing how it works. Starship recognition. I've played a character who had that, and we came across this blown apart Starfleet vessel, and I rolled, and because I had the focus, I was like, I know what that ship is. I've seen that before. I studied this. So, and they're fun little role-playing bits as well, because they're kind of your areas of expertise. So it's totally up to you what you want to pick. They're free form. Generally try to keep them a little bit narrow, because you don't want them to be for absolutely everything. So you can't just have like starships, for example, as a focus. Something about that. So a specific area within that thing. Has anyone got any thoughts?
I'm so obsessed with lying, and I won't lie, but I'm really good at detecting when others lie. Little ticks, little traits, little blinks of the eye, a flush of their skin. Like, I'm really good at knowing if other people are lying.
So you could kind of abstract that a little bit into something like espionage. You know when people are lying, you know when people are trying to deceive, or when something's not quite right. I feel like that would be quite fitting.
Could it be I'm really good at reading facial cues? I'm just really good at reading people's face. Is that too broad? Okay.
No, I mean, like, if you wanted to, you could distill that down. It doesn't have to be like pinpoint. So you could go like espionage, and that would roughly cover it. So that could cover, you know, I'm good at telling that someone's got a nervous twitch there, something's not quite right, or you can tell that this information's been messed with because you've seen this before, or you've heard your mum talk about it before, that's how they do things. Yeah. So they don't have to be like pinpoint enough that you can kind of play, but not so broad that you're like starships. Everything I do is in a starship.
Right. Yeah. I'm just really good at detecting falsehood. Some kind of falsehood. Yeah. All right. Neat.
Yeah.
I like
so go ahead, put that down as your focus. As long as you understand what it means, it's all good. Darby, have you got an idea for your focus?
Yeah, I'm not sure how useful it's going to be, but I'm thinking that his focus is probably going to be sort of holodeck technology. Specific. Whether or not that's going to be of any use, I don't know. But
I can always make it of use. I have seen many TNG episodes where holograms do very strange things.
True.
And even though I am running from the Strange New Worlds book, obviously things will differ a little bit from those adventures as we get into some of the characters' background and I add that stuff in, and undoubtedly you wonderful folks will take that off into all sorts of directions that are not written in the adventure book. But the Star Trek written adventures are really great in that they leave all of this room around the outside for you to do that. So it'll be really cool. But no, I think that can definitely come in handy. Think of all the things that you can do with holo, not just fixing, but maybe that means you can make little holograms, you can mess around with them. Lots of hijinks there, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Max, what have we got for your focus?
So I think, given kind of where it's been, I feel like this is just naturally leading to surgery. It's literally one of the suggestions on the page, and I was like, that feels perfect enough to fit in. And he's so focused on knowing procedures and how to heal people that surgery, I think, just naturally fits.
Cool. I mean, the thing to remember with your focuses is that you get to choose when you think they're relevant to a test, and you just say to me, hey, I've got this focus, does it apply? And if you can explain to me why it applies, even if it's kind of abstracted, I'm always good for it. So if, like, for example, looking at like small craft here, maybe it's, you know, you're trying to fix something and it's a bit broken and you're fixing something that isn't small craft. But you say, oh, this piece is kind of similar to this system we have on a shuttle. It's not a small craft, but it's kind of recognizable. I might then let you use small craft, even though it's not the exact thing you're working on, but because you've explained a way that, like, role-playing wise, the thing is relevant. So I'm always good with you kind of pushing and pulling your focuses in explaining why your character might use that experience. So finally, Cadet Jordan, What focus have you gone for?
Okay, so low-key cheated because I Googled focuses because I wanted a list.
It's absolutely fine.
But I was looking through one, and tell me if this works. It says starship construction. How I interpreted that would be like, in any general ship, everything has a certain thing that it's connected to. So if she can find this one thing, then she can find the other thing. So kind of the layout of like, she might not know exactly where everything is, but she knows the general layout of a ship and where things should be.
Yeah. I
Maybe?
mean, that
Does
can
that
cover,
work?
yeah, that works. That can cover so much. That can be knowing how your ship is put together. That could be knowing, you know, about where starships are made or what they're made from. So there's a lot that encompasses that's really good and I think really works for your character. So that'll be really cool. I think for focuses here, I'm going to go with composure for our captain, if I can spell it right. There we go. I do words for a living. I know how to type. And I think that's what we're going to go for. And then we're going to be going through into Starfleet Academy. But before we do that, I have been informed by the wonderful Charlie that we have a wild magic surge to do already. So obviously it won't take effect here, but it will show up in your first mission next week. So I think we should go ahead and roll it now so that I can write it down and I can have fun dangling it in chat all week of what could I do with this. So let's see. Darby, I would like you to roll. Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong. This is a D10,000?
Wow.
Yeah, so if you can roll 1D10,000.
How does one do that?
Google should be able to do that. Let me double check. So if you type in 1D10,000 into Google, there is a thing called Roll the Dice Online, and it will roll you a D10,000. Oh, or not. It seems to only be rolling single-digit numbers. That's a bit weird.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I completely forgot that we would have to roll for wild magic surges. So, I didn't think we would need dice tonight. So if Charlie rolls it, even better. The real life cue, Charlie, who is the voice in the galaxy. So Charlie's voice has told me that the target's blood is flammable for, I think it was 2d10 rounds. So
Who's the
Right,
target?
That's just unfortunate. That is an unfortunate thing.
Ouch.
if anyone saw the Dread
terrifying.
campaign, we know how terrifying it is when blood becomes flammable.
No one light a cigarette. Just everyone back off.
So, I know the stream couldn't hear, but thank you, Charlie, for looking that up for us in the background. So this is going to be good. I can't wait to use that next week. I wonder how that will come up. But let's move over to Starfleet Academy. So you can go ahead and click that button if you filled your focus in. I forgot to select a discipline again. Whoops. Command. There we go. So this is where you kind of get to decide the kind of rank that you might hold. So officer track, which I think is probably where most of you are going if you want to play senior officers. You can select that or you can roll, but I think you will kind of have a clear idea of what you studied at the academy, or you have enlisted. So enlisted is going to limit the kind of ranks that you can hold. I can't remember what it goes up to now, but I don't think you can hold a rank higher than lieutenant or lieutenant commander. So it's worth deciding if you want to be a senior bridge officer. Normally that's what I find a lot of people want to go for. They want to be the people in charge. So that does put you in charge of possibly departments. It does give you the option to sit at higher ranks if you wish. Is there anyone who doesn't want to select an officer track? It's probably the easiest way to do it.
No, I think I do. I considered it. I considered going enlisted, but I think my guy would have like wanted to be in Starfleet so badly to prove something. So I think he would have gone officer.
Okay. Is there anyone who doesn't want to go the officer track, who doesn't want to be at least some kind of senior rank or senior staff? Okay, so we've definitely got. I mean, I have to go officer track for our captain. It'd be very odd if our captain was only a lieutenant. So here, you get to pick what it is that you did at the academy. Now, generally, I think if everyone's going for senior officers, you're going to be looking at the command track, the operations track, or the sciences track. If you want to go for a research internship, ship or operations, or university alumni, you can, but it is more likely that if you are a senior officer, you went down one of the 3 standard tracks. Apologies, I'm still a bit ill. So I imagine that Darby and Jordan, you're probably on the operations track, which covers kind of engineering security. The same for you, Aaron. Max, you're probably going to be on the sciences track. Interesting. So we don't really have anyone on command, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to go ahead and select command for our captain. So when you click through, it'll give you a bit, again, of some nice informational text about the kind of people that go on to those tracks. And then you'll get to select 3 attributes to increase, or up to 3. And you have a free reign in choice here. So again, control is for people who want to have good fine motor skills, that kind of thing. Very important for medical and for, engineering. Daring covers a few things. It can be used in combat. So if you are a combat character, if you want to be able to really hit stuff, especially at range, daring can be quite useful. It's normally used for kind of ranged attacks as well. And it's also that kind of, it's the exciting one. If you want to do something bold, quite often I will call for tests using daring. Fitness is obviously fitness and endurance. Insight is how you, perceive things and kind of use that. Presence is your presence in a room, your kind of charisma. High-ranking officers who command a lot of respect will often have a very high presence. You can be a commanding officer without any presence, but then you have to kind of figure out why. Is it because you are more laid back with your crew, so you don't need to be that authoritative? And what is that presence? And then reason, which is obviously learning stuff, applied logic, things like that. So I think for our captain, anyway, I'm going to want to up reason. And I want to up presence. And I think probably insight as well. That's going to be pretty important. Then you're going to have majors. So this is pretty much, each of the tracks kind of have two lines. So your major is the thing that you focused on at the academy. So for example, for our captain, I have the choice of command or con in the command track. So helmsman can quite often be command division. But obviously our captain didn't necessarily focus on how to fly a ship. They kind of focused on how to, take on a captaincy, how to lead. So I'm going to click command for their major, but it might be different for you. So it's up to you what you want to select, what your kind of main thing was. And obviously that will give a boost to your, to the appropriate skill. And then you get to select 2 other disciplines. So I like to think of these as the 2 other things that you kind of did quite a bit of at the academy. Although you would have had like a well-rounded, broad education at the academy, these are the kind of things you focused in on. So for example, for the captain, I want to go with security, and I want to go with con as their other disciplines, because as a captain you need to know how the ship works, and you also have to be very understanding and aware of how security works, how to keep your crew safe, how to understand security protocol. So it could be something that makes sense for the role that your character has, or it could be based on an interest that they had. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having an engineer that's like, actually, I'm kind of interested in how medicine works as well. There might be a reason for that. You know, maybe medicine, you're like, well, it's not my main thing, but it's kind of like the engineering of the body. So that's kind of cool. So don't feel like you have to kind of specialize in just that. If you want to do it for a little bit of flavor and character interest, you can too. Let's go around. Let's hear what people think. Max, what have you selected for your major and your disciplines?
So as far as my major, I pure medicine guy. So put that in medicine, and then my discipline, boosting up my science, and then I added one into command to make sure that he has control of the situation, trying to heal someone. Okay, so I like that kind of that boldness coming out in wanting to kind of move that into leadership and kind of focus that boldness and brashness. That's kind of cool. Darby, what did you select for a major and your other disciplines?
So for my major, I selected engineering.
Cool.
And the other disciplines, I've selected command and science.
Oh, okay.
Sort of, I guess, computer science is another thing. Yeah, that sort of thinking.
I like that. So it plays back into that kind of understanding of how to talk to people, the kind of empath betazoid half, yeah. And then the kind of the blur of not just, you know, standard engineering, that kind of more sciencey, holographic, that kind of side of things. Sure. It's cool. Aram, what have you gone for?
Okay, so obviously I majored in security, and I took command and con as my other disciplines.
Okay, so really going for that kind of very Cardassian, straight down the line kind of character. Cool. And we'll give Jordan a second. Have a start thinking. It's all right. All good?
Yeah.
No worries. So, Jordan, what did you take for the major and the discipline? And your other two disciplines?
I went ahead and did engineering because, you know, she's a diehard engineer. But then my other disciplines, I went ahead and did con. And then, so I have the book pulled up on my phone, and I was reading through security, and I really liked the parts of security that were more analyzation, because the example that it gives is like combat. And so I chose security as my other one.
Okay, so that's cool. So that's going to kind of increase your insight into ship security systems, kind of Starfleet protocol as well. So it you know, these skills can be also theoretical as much as practical. So that's really cool. I like that. And the last, you get to 3 focuses now, reflecting on your time at the academy. It's going to give you some suggestions again. Feel free to use the suggestions if you like them, or to come up with your own ones. But think about the one thing that I will say, and this is something that my boss Sam always does with his characters, and he's done it with some of the pre-gens. Take 2 focuses here that are based on what you studied, an area of specialty that you know a lot about, and for that last 3rd focus, make it a hobby. Something that you did in your free time. And I'll tell you why this is really fun. We did a stream at Modifius, and I played a Cardassian engineer who liked to tinker, and one of her focuses was knitting. She really wanted to be really good at knitting. She was terrible at it. She kept being distracted, but she always she spent a lot of time understanding how to knit and then just failing in practice. And it came up when I had to mess around with some wires. I was like, can I use my knitting focus to kind of detangle this and fix it all up? So you'd be surprised how kind of weird little flavor things like that can come in. I know some of our starter set stuff has got like one of the characters, like the pre-gen, has got Klingon opera as a focus, like ornithology. Sam played a character who had bovine xenobiology, so his focus was space cows. We somehow made that show up in game. So take 2 that are based on what you did at the academy, and then pick a hobby or pick an interest and an area of that. So it could even be like 3D chess if you want to kind of go the Spock route. It could be whatever the name of that weird space game was that they had in one of the series is that I can't remember now. But I think it's always fun to have that, because your characters, you know, they're more than just Starfleet officers. They are people. They have hobbies. They have downtime. You know, there's stuff that they do when they're not on duty, when they're not on the bridge, and getting a kind of look into that. And it's, you know, there will absolutely come a point where someone will be like, my hobby is really helpful here. Can I use this thing? And it always makes for a good moment, especially if I have to make you explain how it works. So does has anyone got their focuses in their hobby and want to share, or are people still having a think?
The hobby's the one I'm not sure on. Yeah.
Yeah. So the focus, one of the focuses computers. The other focus is on interrogation, but specifically using empath and telepath abilities in that area. And then the hobby is roller skating.
Nice. Okay, I like that. I imagine that maybe you do that on the holodeck. You've got like a custom holo program for it.
Yeah, roller disco, the whole thing. Yeah.
Awesome. I like that. Has anyone else got their 3 focuses, including their hobby, down?
I'm almost there. So close. I do have my hobby though. So so far, I have my hobby, which is going to be what did I put? It's constellations. So like seeing stars and recognizing like star patterns, not necessarily like how to navigate through stars, but I just imagine like her living on a spaceship for that long. Like that's something that fascinated her as well, because she, you know, obviously like there's the common knowledge that like, you know, stars are balls of gas, but like what if they're not? What if there's a machine inside of them that's creating the gas? Like kind of like conspiracy theories. So I think that she finds that fascinating. And then one of my focuses, I found a really big word that I enjoyed, astronautic engineering, but primarily, so it's like the upgrading of ships, but primarily specific to the engine and its capability to use power without using as much resources. So she's researching into that. Does that work for one of them?
Yeah, I mean, you can probably put like warp technology in there as well. That's probably really relevant. And you know, it's always good for somebody to have a focus in warp core technology, because nobody wants to have to vent the warp core. Nobody wants to do that. Aram, what have you got so far? You got your focus and hobby down?
Yeah, the first 2 are pretty predictable. So the first 2 are going to be hand-to-hand combat and hand phasers, but the third one is going to be horseback riding, because he grew up in Montana, and a horse to him was one of the most beautiful things he had ever seen. He just had like a natural inclination for them, and he just understood them well. So he spent a lot of his time riding horses.
I imagine as well that was a lot of like time by yourself, where you didn't really have to be around anyone else. Perhaps people were kind of just happy to let you go off and horse ride because their feelings towards you as well. So I like that.
I could outrun all of them on the horse. I could leave every single one behind.
Yeah. And, you know, I imagine maybe Darby has done you a holodeck program for horse riding. I can imagine that being something maybe you've programmed. It's kind of cool.
You just see this really serious dark Cardassian walking down in like a full jockey outfit one day on his way to the hologram.
Like every new crew member's like, what is going on? And Max, what have we got for your focuses and your hobby?
So my hobby is still kind of up in the air at the moment. But the other 2 focuses I have are I feel really relevant. Xenobiology, and then infectious diseases.
Mhm.
The hobby, I'm leaning towards him being like a film buff. Like anytime that he needed to take a break, he'd go watch a movie. Like he would just zone out completely, drown everything else out, not think about medical procedures, not think about anything else but the movie that he's watching, and would watch a ton of them.
Is that like 21st century movies, or is that like current
Ooh.
century stuff? You like an older film buff? Because let me tell you, in our Dread game, we had Zippy who played a film buff chimp judge. And the amount of times he's like, I want to do this thing. And I'm like, you need to tell me what movie you saw it in first. Because he had a skill for film. So if you want to go film buff with it, maybe picking like an era or a genre of films. Because then you've got something to kind of draw on with that focus where you can kind of make it apply in some situations.
Mm-hmm.
So are you a little bit like Picard, who kind of likes his 21st century Earth stuff and the collecting those older things? Or is it like modern films? Is it Klingon movies? Like,
it'd be so dark. It's just a song made 37 times.
He's really into sports movies like that. Like, for whatever reason, Rocky keeps because I always think of him as like he would get into kind of fist fights, and that would kind of be the thing. So like Rocky was a big influence on him, and so so Rocky or sports films maybe. So
you can absolutely have sports films as a focus. Yeah. I can't wait to see that come up in play.
Every time we go by his room, you just hear the Chariots of Fire song, just every time.
So focuses for our captain. I think here I'm going to put in diplomacy. Always good to have a captain that knows how to do that. Starfleet protocols. I can spell.
I haven't done a captain thing yet. I have an idea.
You haven't done a captain thing yet. Would you like to pick the focus or the hobby?
Yeah, plants. So the captain's just got his whole command quarters is filled with different types of plants, and he's just obsessively trimming them and spritzing them, and he's probably got names for all of them, but he would never let any of us know the names. Like only he can say the names for the plants.
In TOS, that one episode, he was obsessed with botany. Okay, yes. So I've got plant husbandry. And now you also get to pick another talent. So have a look through the list. There might be a few more that it's opened it up to here. And pick one that you like the look of. So again, we've got all of the bold and cautious stuff. You've got things, you'll start getting some more of the combat stuff kind of show up and more of the general stuff. So you've got things like crisis management. So some of these also cover starship, stuff that you can do on a starship in battle. Because when you fight in a starship in battle, you kind of all get to your stations, and then you have to decide tactically what you're doing versus other ships. It's totally up to you what you want to pick. Some of these, if there's one for it looks like that you don't quite understand, or any of like the rules language, or it looks like it's for a ship and you want to know what it does, just shout it out to me and I'll have a look. There's a good one here that you might like, Aaron, called Hunker Down. So it makes use of cover dice. There's things like... there's even things like sensory replacements, enhancements, and things like that. There's Starship Expert, if anyone's particularly interested in starships, like your character, Jordan. There is, let me have a look and see if there's any that we haven't really covered. There's an interesting one here. There's cold reading. So when you succeed in a social conflict, so kind of more like a, not throwing fisticuffs, you can gain some bonus momentum to spend it on getting information on the other individual. So you can kind of figure out a little bit about them if you want to do that. You've got things like call to action. So in a conflict, you can use one of your minor actions to give another ally a minor action immediately that second outside of their turn, as long as you can communicate with them. So that can be really useful. There's things like bargain, so negotiation and stuff like that gets a little bit easier. You get some bonuses to that. I'm going to have a look and see if I can find one that's good for our captain. Is everyone kind of okay with what they're seeing so far in here? If anyone needs help with anything, just let me know. How are people finding character creation so far? And enjoying it? It's like there's a lot here, right?
It's solid. Yeah, it's solid, but I feel like I really have a good feel for my character now. Like it drives you down a very good path where it gives you a bunch of freedom, but it also reins you in a bit, so you really have to settle on a concept, and I like that.
Yeah, I really, really love character creation for this game. There's a lot of games where character creation is fun, but I kind of just want to play. But in Trek, I love kind of getting to grips with it. I'm actually going to go for personal effects for our captain, because she keeps going on about all of these plants, and I just kind of like the idea that some of the most important things to this Vulcan captain is some of his botany equipment. But if you've all selected your talents, you can scroll down and you get another value. So just like before, should respect some aspects of your beliefs developed while you were training at the academy. So have a think, what did being at the academy teach you? What's a kind of a thing that you hold on to? It could even be something that a mentor said to you, but something that your character holds really dear. I know what I'm going for the captain, and it's one that I give all of my captains, and that is your crew is your family. I think we've kind of made it quite a tender-hearted Vulcan captain here. Sees the value in caring, even if they don't understand why people care about certain things. I really hope everybody who is in chat is enjoying us seeing create these characters. I think it's always fun to see the origins of a character as they're built up. And I'm fascinated. I know that at some point during the week, I'm going to have to go back and rewatch all of this and make pages of notes about all of your characters and things that I want to throw into the mix for you to all have fun with. Because I love doing that. So everyone got all of those? Have you done your values? What values are we thinking of? Max, what value have you picked for your medic?
I'm still kind of going back and forth on that. Because if part of me feels like, since I have a bit of a slightly negative initial value, I kind of want this one to be a little bit more positive, but I'm a little unsure at the moment. So if you want to come back to me, feel free to.
Yeah, sure. Has anyone got a value that they want to share?
Yeah, the weak need protection. The weak need protection.
Okay.
He believes himself an instrument. It is his duty to protect those who cannot defend themselves. He doesn't necessarily look down on them, but he will kind of sometimes recklessly put himself in harm's way to defend another. It's definitely one of his Achilles heels.
So maybe that's a little bit of what he perceives as weak. So
yes,
not necessarily someone that is weak, but someone that
right.
his point is.
It's
how I
totally
imagine that
biased.
Being Cardassian, you can't fight.
Because his
then
mom messed with his head. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can't physically defend yourself, maybe you're weak without knowing that person can defend themselves in other ways. Very intelligently through conversation, and I like that. I like that it's a good trait that might trip you up sometimes. That might get you on the wrong end of diplomacy sometimes.
Absolutely.
So I love it when there's values that I know I get to mess with later on. Darby, have you got a value for your character?
Yeah, and it may already be causing a bit of a clash because it's violence is the last option.
Okay, I like it. So again, playing into that kind of empathy, diplomacy background. Yep. I like the sound of that. especially you're in engineering as well, so you're not, you could have gone frontline command, you could have gone into even security. I think for a betazoid, that could be they could do very well there, and you've kind of picked this less confrontational role. That's cool. I like it. Jordan, have you got one for your character?
Yeah, I'm still trying to find a way to condense it into like a little snippet. But I think that for her, once the value is that like once you have almost proven yourself to her in a way that like I've got your back, you've got mine, in a way that melds with her first value, she is not going to cross you. Like you are family, like you can do wrong, but it would take a lot for you to do enough wrong for her to be like, bye.
So you could put something like, once there's trust, it's hard to break.
I like that.
It doesn't necessarily have to be like the most eloquently worded thing, as long as you can understand what it's about, and I can understand what it's about when I read it. So if I want to kind of challenge you with it or put stuff in your way to kind of way that could be useful, I know what it means. But that sounds really cool. I like the idea of like very, very hard to gain her trust and respect, but once you've got it, like you've got it, and it's going to take a lot to lose it because she'll fight for you. I like that. Good kind of engineer to have on a ship. Max, how are we doing with your value?
So I think what I feel like I've settled on is because he's studied so much, he's very much by the book. So it's very difficult for him to it's more difficult for him to improvise another solution. So he gets a little iffy if a small complication might arise, and so like he wants to heal up a burn, but suddenly there's something else that kind of comes through that he's like, oh wait, that's not supposed to happen, that's not how a burn usually, so it throws him and he gets a little
right. So if it's kind of not what he expects, like he can do it without the tools and the equipment, and he's bold and daring enough to do it, but it's when the circumstances change. So maybe it's something like boldly by the book. Like you can do it, you can be outspoken, you can kind of outreach, you can kind of shift around the edges of the book. But as soon as there's something that hasn't been in the book and there isn't something to refer back to, as soon as it's an attack that's come from a weapon that you've never seen the injury of, you're like, I'm more than willing to kind of get stuck in, I just don't know what this is.
Right.
So,
and it's almost like I don't know where to start right now because I've never seen it before.
It's like as long as you know where to start, you can keep going from there. But as soon as it's like a new jump off point and like the book's out the window and you're like, I need the manual.
right, exactly.
I like that. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to career. So you can click through. You're probably going to want to select your career here because I think you will kind of know who you are on the ship now we're getting there. So you can choose to be a young officer, an experienced officer, or a veteran officer. So this can play into your character's age, or it might play into how quickly they've also moved through Starfleet and how they're regarded. So young officers, you get untapped potential. That limits the rank that you can take. I think you can't take anything over lieutenant junior grade. So might not be the best thing if you do want to be kind of bridge crew and senior staff, which is what I'm feeling everyone kind of wants to lean into. Experienced officer is what makes up the bulk of Starfleet's officers. People that have been doing this role a fair amount of time. They know their job, they know what to do. That gives you one free talent of your choice you can pick from the list. And veteran officer, this is someone you've been in it a while. You've been doing this a long time, or perhaps if you've got a slightly shorter career, you are doing this at the top level. So you might not be a veteran in terms of length of service, but the amount of work that you've done and the level that you've reached might warrant that. I think most people here are probably going to be an experienced officer, but you're welcome to pick whatever you wish. For our captain, I'm going to go for veteran officer. I like to think that our Vulcan captain has been doing this a while. You don't really get to be the captain of a starship unless you've been in Starfleet a while and worked your way through. So this will also give you a talent. So for example, the veteran talent, because the character's wise and experienced, whenever our captain would spend like a point of determination, we get to roll a d6, and if an effect is rolled to a 5 or 6, they get that back. And they must hold a rank of at least lieutenant commander. So like I said, some of these do come with caps or minimums for rank. Experienced officer I don't think does, but young officer definitely comes with a cap. What's everyone thinking? Where is everyone kind of gravitating towards on this?
I'm fresh out of Starfleet. This is my first ship. Like, I'm good. I scored well. I was determined, but I'm young.
Okay, so yeah, so you're not so much going to be senior staff, but maybe that's where you're aspiring to be. Cool.
Absolutely.
I like that. So you also get a talent called Untapped Potential, and I believe you do also get a cap then to how high some of your attributes can go. But what's the benefit that you get for that? If you just want to call it out, I can't remember off the top of my head, but so everyone on stream can see what's going on. I think you're muted again.
Sorry, the character is defined by their potential more than their skill. Their raw talent and their expectations of what the universe is like have not yet been tempered by reality. The character receives a value which must reflect the character's experience and naivety and untapped potential a career. The character is inexperienced but talented with a bright future in Starfleet. They may not have any ability above 11 or any discipline above 4 while they have this talent, and may adjust it accordingly. So I will have to do that.
Yeah, you'll get a chance at the end to kind of mess around with numbers.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you that. So you're a little bit limited there until you reach a point where perhaps you get a promotion or something like that, which is definitely something we're going to be exploring, because we're going to go a bit episodic with how we're running these adventures. A little bit closer to the TV shows, so we can have structures of time in between where perhaps promotions happen or demotions, depending on what you've been doing in relation to the Prime Directive. But yes, you do get a value as well. What's everyone else gone for? Jordan, what have you picked?
It's kind of difficult because I feel like she has the mindset of a young officer, but I don't think that she's a young officer. She knows her way around. She knows what she's doing. So I picked experienced.
Okay.
But I think she's probably on the shorter time frame end of that. Just because she's still very impulsive, I feel like.
So maybe she's got experience in terms of her knowledge and her technical know-how, but perhaps her, like the other bit of her hasn't quite been tempered into like the full workings of like a veteran officer. Like all the knowledge is there.
Well, she's still trying to figure out how to, for lack of a better words, human with other people. She doesn't like communication-wise.
No, that sounds really cool. But yeah, I like that, and that's obviously a thing. Like experience can be lots of things. You can be inexperienced but have the right kind of temperament and attitude, and that can get you quite far as well. Darby, what have you gone for?
I've gone for experienced officer, but I kind of feel like my character perhaps had experience in Starfleet, but perhaps in a different area, perhaps developing technology for them, and this is sort of like a first sort of field placement kind of thing.
So maybe you didn't intend to kind of go on starships, but maybe the technology you've kind of done has been useful, so you kind of taken this posting to see it in action to get a better idea of how this works.
Yeah, for sure.
For fleets. That's kind of cool. I like that. And Max, what have you picked?
So I went with experienced officer. I think it's a bit of a similar situation with kind of like to Jordan's character, how he's learned a lot. He knows a lot, but there has only been a very small amount of time where he's been able to really use that.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just after that point of like, okay, I have basics and I know those very well, but the small things he's still kind of learning and picking up on as he goes. So
What I like here is that everyone who's picked experienced officers, all of you are on this great borderline where you could be senior staff, like new senior staff into their roles. So a new chief engineer or a new CMO where you've got all the basics, you know how to do your job, but suddenly there's this whole other layer of command and responsibility thrust on you if you want to do that. If you don't want to play senior staff in that way, that's also totally fine. You've also got to pick a value now that reflects what you've chosen as your career. So it's worth having a think about. Maybe this is something that you've learned, or this is something that you feel. So for example, for our veteran captain, I think this is going to be something again to do with the crew. So not every crew is the same, but they require same care. I like having caring captains. You know, the recognition that there is a way that you do Starfleet. There is a way that you captain a ship that is logical and makes sense. There's a chain of command. You know, there is a way that you have to treat a crew that is the same no matter who it is, no matter which crew member it is, no matter which ship you're on. Even if the people are different, even if the way of life is different, there are some fundamentals that a Starfleet crew deserve to have from their captain, I think is a good way of thinking about it. And then we get onto some really fun background stuff once you've selected your values. So has anyone got their value already? Has anyone found something that kind of immediately snaps to mind?
I actually do this time. So I think for him, this last one is kind of what he says medically goes. He is so rote and just like, no, you're not going to do it that way. You're going to do it this way by the book. And that's exactly what you're going to do. You're not going to go away from that.
Okay, so maybe something like my medical word is law. That kind of feeling, like when I have made a decision about how we do this is how, like, you know your experience. You know that you know your medicine. I like that. I like the kind of the confidence that it isn't arrogant, but it's daring and it's bold and it's like your character's not afraid to be right.
Yeah.
Cool. Who else has got a value or maybe something that they're kind of thinking of?
So with mine, it's supposed to reflect my inexperience and naivete. So I would say that my character can't turn down a challenge. They, even if it's only implied, like they can't turn down a challenge.
Everything is a chance to prove yourself.
Yep.
Something like that. So it's not even like being called out, but if there's something that needs doing and nobody else is taking action, that kind of, I'll do it. I'll show that I can do it.
Yeah, if we're both mopping the deck, I'm going to mop the deck better. And I'm going to go home knowing I mopped that deck better. Absolutely.
Okay. None of these are going to get you in any trouble at all. It's a good job in this era. All of the operations division wear gold and not red. Okay. Darby, have you got anything that you're thinking about? Have you got a value yet? Have you got something that you're kind of thinking about?
Yeah, I'm thinking a sort of like a wanderlust, like just a desire to see as much as possible out there and get as many new experiences as possible, even if they may not be the best experiences, they may not be the safest experiences necessarily, but just getting out there and any opportunity to see something new.
Yeah, so maybe it's something like, exploration is as important as the discovery.
Yeah.
So it's not just about getting to the place or getting to the end goal. It's about exploring everything around it and everything on the way there.
The experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think especially kind of like you said, growing up kind of by yourself on this very hoity-toity, isolated colony, you got very limited in what you can experience there. to some degree. So like I imagine that plays into kind of the holodeck, the seeing these other places. I really like that. And Jordan, how about you? What have you got for your value here?
Yeah, so I think that she truly believes that there is an order to everything, and if things don't go in that order, then chaos will ensue. She understands that order does not always start with her. But like, for example, if a like experienced officer tells her to do something, but then like captain tells her to do something else, like that priority shifts always. Or like if we are supposed to land the ship and then get out, but someone decides to jump out before it's over, like no, like you've gone the wrong direction. Chaos is going to ensue. There is no way to fix this problem. I don't know what to do with you. Like
Oh, kind of like that. So it's that like in any situation there is a chain of command, or there's a chain of events.
Yes.
So if that is, you tell me to do something, but then the captain told me, so now the priority changes. That's now the new order, because that's how the order works. That's how the chain of command works. If we go on a mission and we say we're going to room A, room B, room C, and suddenly we're doing room C first, like, no, this was not the plan. There was no discussion of
mood shift. Everything is wrong. I don't.
You know, like maybe it's like it just happens, like fixing part of the ship. You're like, right, I've got to fix this bit first, then this bit, then this bit, and it turns out the problem is over here, and you're like, no, I didn't plan for this. I planned for these things to be wrong, not that thing. And then I imagine that maybe it takes a bit to kind of reshuffle that order priority wise.
Yeah, I think it kind of throws her into an emotional sense of chaos of like, this is not, how do I fix this? Because it's not how I need it to be.
And I mentioned some of that's because she's very like technically minded. She's kind of already half solved the problem before she even touches it, and then it turns out to be something else. And it's that awkward thing of like, it's not really an issue, it's just really inconvenient, and it puts everything out.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the sound of that. Okay, so we're going to move on to career events. So you get to pick 2 career events. Now I want to do something really specific here. We're going to talk about one of your career events, about what happened and what that might mean, but I want you to hold on to the other one, and I want it to be a career event, not necessarily that you keep from anybody, but perhaps is less known about, perhaps it's not one that you talk about, and that could be for a number of reasons. And if you decide during the week that you want to share those with each other, you can, but for a little bit of fun and suspense for the wonderful people at home, because they are things that I would like to possibly bring up during play or hint at and kind of throw in the mix without you really knowing that it's potentially coming. If that's okay, if everyone's good with that, you can feel free to share them between you if you decide that you want your crew to be really close-knit, or maybe, you know, like Max and Aaron, your characters know each other very well, or perhaps Jordan and Darby, your characters are in the same department maybe. There's nothing saying that you can't have a shared career event if 2 of you want to pick the same one. Perhaps you've served together before. So now we start thinking about more recent in your character's history, more recent in how long you've been together as a crew. Maybe some of you have been together before, or have been to the academy together. Maybe some of you are completely new and you've never met anybody else on the ship for the first time. We're going to go to career events. Now, you have a choice. You can roll for these randomly, which can be really fun to figure out how you work that into your character, or you can select them. It's totally up to you. I'm going to hit select here so that I can talk about what they are. There's quite a few of them. So we have, and these obviously give you a bonus to a particular attribute and discipline. So ship destroyed. So that's a ship that you were on, suffered catastrophic damage. Something terrible happened. Pardon me. Death of a friend. So you lost somebody. And I'm happy for people to kind of tweak these a little bit if it's like death of a family member, but you know, the circumstances around that. Lauded by another culture. So this can be really good for people that grew up among other cultures. You know, there's another culture that deeply respects you. So for example, if you were, say, an Andorian ambassador for Starfleet that worked very closely with Vulcan, you might be lauded by the Vulcan culture. They respect you. You know, that doesn't have to be like a whole planet civilization. That could be, you know, you grew up on another like the homeworld. For example, Aram, if your character, instead of being treated with suspicion, had been welcomed, you might be lauded by another culture for doing well, you know, for coming in and, you know, kind of uniting those things. Obviously, that's not the
Sure.
case of what happened to your character, but that's kind of the thing. You've got negotiate a treaty. So maybe for those more experienced officers, maybe you were part of a diplomatic mission and you played a key role in the negotiation of a treaty between two species, between, you know, two organizations. You got required to take command. So there was a situation where whether or not you were the next person in the chain of command, you had to take command. You had to lead. You had an encounter with a truly alien being. Something happened, and, you know, it's like having the paranormal encounter, but it's space and it actually happened and there's some science to it. You have serious injury. So you suffered a serious injury and the circumstances around that and how you deal with that. Again, conflict with a hostile culture. Did a mission go wrong? Did a first contact go wrong? Did you accidentally reveal yourself to a pre-warp civilization? Mentored, so somebody recognized your talent. Transporter accident, because it's not Trek without one of those. So something happened with the transporter. You dealt with a plague or a widespread disease. So perhaps you were part of a relief crew. What the circumstances around that? You betrayed your ideals for a superior. So you went against something that you believed in to follow somebody who was a superior. Maybe they're a mentor. Maybe they're someone you cared about. Maybe it's somebody that you blindly put faith in, and whether or not you regret that. The opposite of that is you called out the superior. So there was somebody doing something that went against your ideals. Maybe they were right, maybe they were wrong. And you called them out, and there were consequences to you doing that. You came up with a new battle strategy. So maybe you helped develop a piece of equipment that's helped with battle strategies. These don't have to be things that have actually been used. It could be theoretical. It could be that you wrote a thesis on something. You learn a unique language, so you can speak the language of another culture, or perhaps there's something in your past, you know, there's you went to a pre-warp planet on a mission and you learned to speak the native language. You've got discovered an artifact, which is pretty much what it sounds like. You received a special commendation, so you did something and you were recognized for it. You solved an engineering crisis, something catastrophic was happening, and you were the person that dealt with that. You had a breakthrough or created an invention, so something that has benefited. Darby, this might work for you if you've kind of been doing holo-technology. First contact, so you were part of a crew to make first contact with a civilization and reach out. Or you've been recruited to Starfleet intelligence. So at some point in your career, maybe you still feed them information, but that was something that happened. You get to pick two. I think they make you pick them one at a time. And we'll go through that. So if everyone wants to select the first one, the one that they're going to be happy to reveal. I think for our captain, I'm going to go with required to take command. So you'll see it'll give you a boost to one of your attributes and a boost to your discipline. Some of these might give you a value. It really depends on what you pick. But for the most part, they're probably all going to give you a focus, I believe, if that's what everyone else is seeing. So, you know, what did you learn from that? What skill did you develop? So for our captain, I'm going to take lead by example. One of the example focuses, but it works well for a Vulcan, I think. So does anyone want to share what their career event is and what their focus is?
Yeah, when I was in class with Max's character, one of my mother's old enemies, because they're always coming after the traders, tried to assassinate me with some sort of gas, and it dissolved my lungs, but they were able to stabilize me in time, so I have artificial lungs.
Hey, I like that.
And
So
a fear of losing my breath. And it like they were it took a while to adapt to them. So I just spent a lot of time meditating, a lot of time just very slowly and carefully breathing to be able to fully gain control over them.
So maybe that focus is on that focus is to do with that. It's to do with maybe you have a focus in artificial organs because you've had to know how that works, and you have to know how to explain that to somebody if there's a problem. So that's pretty cool. Maybe might make for an interesting situation with Max at some point. So this is something that's known about you. You don't hide this. You know, anyone in medical will have to know this is the case. Your captain would know. Do you take it as a point of pride? You like the fact that you have artificial lungs, or is it something that you're not really bothered about?
No, I don't like it. I don't like it, but I've accepted it and I've conquered it in my mind, but I haven't really dealt with it.
Okay. Jordan, what have you selected for this career?
I selected injury as well. So hers is she was working on a part of the ship in the middle of like chaotic events. I assume it was like we were not very happy with somebody else. And as she's working on this part of the ship jolts and it threw her like into a part of the ship that she was working on that was a little bit higher temperature, but she also had like kind of a concussion thing. And so she lost hearing in her left ear.
Okay.
She actually doesn't have one anymore. We don't talk about it. So she has a little bit of like burns that run like from that area all the way down. And like her left hand, she's not good at fine motor skills. So like writing and stuff like that, like it still functions fine. But yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do about the focus though.
So the focus here, what has she developed out of that? So that focus could be, it could be something like safety precautions. So after that, she's made an effort to really look into how do I make things safe? Or it could be something like, because she's lost hearing in that side of her ear, perhaps she's learned to lip read. Perhaps she's learned sign language to help her better communicate. Maybe directly after she had the incident when actually maybe she had, like, is it total hearing loss? Is it partial hearing loss?
It's just in her left ear, but she can't hear anything. It's gone.
Yeah, so maybe after that incident, you know, you could have a focus in something like sign language to represent, maybe you took it upon yourself to learn a new skill so that, you know, it doesn't, that there's a way to mitigate that sometimes. Or maybe it was to, you know, because you now have this and maybe you've met other people that have had it in kind of learning that new form of communication. It's totally up to you. But that is something to bear in mind. And I definitely, like when you get the PDF, definitely note it maybe in the traits, that is the case, because that can be really important in certain situations. You know, that obviously can play to the benefit or the detriment depending on what's going on. So that's pretty cool. Max, what have we got for your career event?
So I went with Encounter with a Truly Alien Being. I think this would probably tie into a bit of I think it was my second value. So he, at some point, was asked to perform some form of medical procedure on an entity that he had no idea what it was or how to navigate its anatomy, and he while initially was very much like, what is this? I think I don't know what if I'm struggling to think of a good focus for it, but I think.
So what kind of being was this? So for example, was it a being that had a gaseous form? Was it kind of a la McCoy in TOS with the Horta, and that it had this kind of, it was silicon based? Because you could have a focus in that biology. So gaseous life form biology, for example, if it was a gaseous life form that you had to do something with, or even come up with a kind of life form. It's Trek. I'm totally happy for people to come up with technobabble to explain what's going on. I will roll with it. Whatever you tell me is wrong with the thing, that's what's wrong with the thing. Like, so if you want to come up with something,
Sure. Yeah, I like the idea of like a gaseous life form, just him being like, it's not quite solid. I don't know where what are you? Just so he was forced to start.
This thing on the table. What are you?
Yeah, so he I think it forced him to start looking up various I guess non-humanoid-esque beings.
Yeah, so maybe maybe have something in either like rare xenobiology, or you could pick specifically like gaseous life form xenobiology, so you know how that works, because you've kind of been there and done that. Darby, what about your character? What have we got for a career event?
I've gone through breakthrough or invention, and I'm kind of like sort of. I think this is where sort of part of the Betazoid and the holo engineering sort of come together. In that, I think he's at least theoretically developed a way to make sort of holo projection or sort of characters in holo-technology more like real people, or even developing complex emotions theoretically at this stage.
Okay, so like the ability to display complex emotions, or for them to understand like the AI to understand complex emotions to better add realism to those simulations. That's really cool. I imagine that's got a lot of uses for Starfleet in running through like diplomatic procedures before they even go and do them.
Yeah.
Cool, I like it. So what have you put your focus in?
That's where I'm struggling.
Have you already got hologram technology or holo-technology as a focus?
I already have that one, yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that works. That's perfect.
Because that's kind of what you're bordering into, is that kind of that fine line just before it tips over the edge, right?
Yeah.
Into something being conscious.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to want to go through now. You'll see there's another button at the bottom for career events. Go through and select another career event. Don't tell us about it. I will ask you later on in our chats when I get 5 minutes over downtime on the weekend to let me know what those things are and kind of give me some information on that. And we can build that in. And it's totally up to you. Like I said, you can decide if you want to keep this a secret, something that you don't really want people to know. You can decide if this is something that maybe only a few of the crew know. Maybe it's something that only the captain knows. Maybe it's just not important, and it was a very, although these are obviously built to be kind of key touchstones, if you want it to kind of downplay it and it not so, a ship destroyed, maybe it wasn't entirely destroyed, but the ship was damaged, it wasn't usable, it had to be scrapped and salvaged, but nobody was hurt, it wasn't an incident. If that's what you want, that's fine too, as long as your character gets a focus from it. Like I said, some might give you a value, but you can go ahead and pick that as well. But it's up to you how important that is, or why it's not known about, or if you feel strongly that it is something you're really, really open about and you want to be, and you want to tell us now, you can. That's also an option. But sometimes it's kind of fun to have those things back that can kind of be slow revealed as we go through, that perhaps influence a character in ways that aren't so obvious. It looks like that we are getting closer to another wild magic surge. We're at 37 retweets, so we need 3 more, chat, and we get another wild magic surge. So far we have the target's blood becomes flammable for 2d10 rounds.
Yeah. Target's eyes become matchsticks. It's gonna add up.
If you want to see some weird space Q continuum stuff pop up, that is what I'm basically going to base the wild magic on. It doesn't mean Q will appear, but it maybe the Q continuum in the background is pulling some strings. Or maybe it's just really inconvenient and it marries up very well with what's happening and just serves to increase the danger. Maybe it's even a good thing. Who knows? Maybe Q is bored, yeah. Someone in the Q continuum has just noticed and been like, oh, it's interesting. I wonder what happens if that blood catches fire.
Q is bored is basically Q's entire personality. He would always just show up on the ship like, entertain me.
I'm just imagining I'm going to perform surgery on this creature. Just immediately. Oh no.
That poor gaseous creature that somehow had blood as soon as that it touched, air of a certain concentration, flames. High flashpoint blood.
Oh.
So yeah, push us into those 40 retweets, chat, and we'll get to see what other crazy wild magic comes up. So has everybody picked their second career event and filled out all the bits they need to there? Cool.
Yes.
I look forward to seeing what those are. You can now go ahead and click the finishing touches button, and this is going to bring you to a page with a couple of bits and pieces. So, pardon me. You get 2 attribute points to distribute. There may also be a thing that is asking you to reduce attribute points or shift them around, depending on what choices you've made in some places. Because there's only so far you can go. So if you went over a maximum anywhere, or for you for dropping down some of those, it might ask you to shift them around. But otherwise, you get to put them wherever you like in your attributes. Think about what the main ones are, aspects of your character, or bumping up the ones that perhaps have been ignored by the choices that you've made and you just want to push them up a bit. That's also good too. Star Trek is really, really good in that you can make really specialized characters, and it's really cool when you have a group where everyone's good at like one particular thing. And you can also have characters that are kind of, there's a lot more crossover in what they can do and what the rest of the group can do, and that gets really interesting as well. Especially if you have groups that are, so like at the minute, until we have Raven back in, I don't know what they're planning on playing, but we have no command characters right now. So that can be very, very interesting if you have to get into situations where those kinds of characters would be most useful in how you kind of work around that based on who's in the crew. So it always gets interesting. The game never kind of unbalances at that point. It gets very fun. You'll also have disciplines. You might be asked to add and reduce some, or you might just be asked to put points into them. You can go ahead and do that. So for the captain, I think I'm going to up... I'm not going to up daring so much. I'm going to up presence. And I'm going to up reason. Because logic is kind of the top tier. And then for disciplines, I've already maxed out command at 5. So I like to think that our captain, being Vulcan, being very logical, probably knows a bit about science and a bit about medicine as well. Actually, maybe not medicine, maybe engineering. Kind of how things work. And then you have a final value. This is pretty much free for you to do whatever you want with. It can be about career events. It can be about something personal. It can be something really lighthearted, kind of like how we had a hobby that was a focus. Maybe this is, something that's important to a character that's not based around how they feel about the universe and all of the things in it. Maybe it is something just more lighthearted. Something that they just kind of hold to themselves. The kind of thing you might put up on a pinboard as inspiration. It's totally up to you. And I think what would be fun would be to have a look at what everyone's kind of ending stats are. We can just have a quick read of those on stream so people can kind of see what the balance of the group is so far. Has anyone done that already? Does anyone kind of know what they want?
I think so.
Go on then, Matt. Why don't you tell us what your scores are for your attributes and your disciplines, and let us know what that value is.
Sure. So my control is at a 10. My daring is at a 9. Fitness is at an 8. Insight is at a 10. Presence is at an 8, and reason is at an 11.
Okay, so we've got who's good with their fine motor skills, very logical, not afraid, good presence, but perhaps isn't quite as insightful. And the fitness side is kind of understandable. You're not going to be like frontline chasing after the bad guys. That's kind of cool. And how about your
Yeah.
disciplines? What have you got there?
So my command is at a 3. My con is at a 1. Engineering is at a 2. Security is at a 1. Science is 4. And medicine is 5.
Okay, so we're definitely bordering on the kind of science and medicine with a little bit of those leadership skills. Cool, I
Yeah.
like it. And how about your value? What final value have you selected?
So I think even through all this, I think ultimately the value is going to be like, we're going to get through this, because I think it kind of ties into having to do so many medical things varying in severity that it's something that he's told patients many times. And as well, I feel like it kind of ties into how many just sports related movies he watches. So the team or the person always gets through in the end, or wins, or learns like a moral value. And he's kind of taken to that as like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it, and I can help others get through it.
Awesome. Okay, so if you've got that written down, you can go ahead and click through and just wait there. That's like it says finish, but there's a couple of bits we have to do before that. Jordan, why don't you tell us about your character? What are their attributes, disciplines look like, and what value have you picked?
Yeah, so her control is at a 12. Her daring is at a 9. Her fitness is at a 10. Insight is 8. Presence is 7. And reason is 10 for the attributes.
That's pretty strong. So very intelligent, very good at kind of all of the things that you'd expect an engineer to be good at. And with that kind of presence thing, you've got that kind of that shyness, that kind of coming through that you talked about, where she knows that she knows it, but saying that she knows it is a different thing.
Yeah.
I like it. How about your disciplines? What have you got there?
So command is a 1. Con is a 4. Engineering is a 5. Security is a 2. Science is a 1. And medicine is a 3.
Okay. So I like that you've got that kind of medical background there. I like that little boost. It's always useful. There's a bit of me that feels like maybe that's the kind of whole, it's just like engineering for people. It's
yeah.
Like I'm totally imagining moments where perhaps like you and Max, something has happened. Maybe you've had an engineering accident, and you're trying to draw like the parallels with, that's like when the ship's thing does this, and
yeah. No, it's just, I mean, she'd be down for medicine. She just has to get over the fact it's with a person, not a machine.
And how about that value? What's that final value that you've picked?
Okay, so kind of as an engineer, it feels like you're always fixing something or making it better. And so her last and final value is every problem has a solution, and I will do what must be done to find it.
Oh, I like it. I like that I feel like that's a little bit of her that you're saying, like, that wants to come through, that she hasn't yet. That's kind of, it's there, that the urge to keep going. That's cool. Let's see, Aram, let's have a look at your character. What have we got for final stats?
So I've got control 8. He's new and he's young, so he doesn't have all of the discipline he should. His daring is also 8, also because he's young and maybe a little unsure of himself. Fitness is 11. Dude's a machine. Insight is 10 because he's very good at reading people. Presence is a 9, and reason is 10 because he's rather smart, especially in the areas that he's focused in. Command is 3. Con is 4. He's obsessed with how the ship works because he thinks he needs to know every system in order to truly protect the people on board and protect the ship itself, even though it's not really his job. Engineering is 2. Security is 4. Science is 1. And medicine is 2. And his value is fairness. He believes that space is dark and cold. His upbringing was a bit harsh and unfair, and he believes in putting some fairness back into the universe.
I like that. I like that there are very clear ties here to a Cardassian influence in some of that determination, but also the clash there of wanting to break away from parts and elements of this culture that you don't think are right. I really, really like that, and I think that's going to be interesting. And
Awesome.
How about you, Darby? How are we doing?
Yeah, so attributes. His control is 10, daring is 7, fitness is an 8, insight is a 12, presence is 11, and reason at an 8.
Cool. Okay, so definitely leaning on that kind of insight into people, being able to read that. I really love having Betazoids in my games because it gets really interesting, especially when the crew start to lie to each other about things, which I've had happen. Once you start getting into those more difficult conversations, the Betazoid's always the one that can point out the elephant in the room.
And then for disciplines, I have a 4 in command, a 1 in con, 5 in engineering, a 1 in security, 2 in science, and 3 in medicine.
Oh, I like that. So kind of like a very clear kind of upper and lower ends, but that middle spread is kind of averaging out. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
How about that final value?
So this is a little bit of a personal one for the character. So with the sort of growing up in a little bit of isolation and reading the stories and looking at the holo novels and things like that, bit of a romantic, and he's looking for his Imzadi, his Betazoid soulmate out there in the stars somewhere.
Oh, that's lovely. I like that. Okay, if you go ahead and click through to finish, it's now going to ask you for a name. It'll give you some suggestions based on the species that you picked. So go ahead, type that in, and then it's going to ask you for your assignment. So this is going to be based on the highest disciplines that you picked. So obviously, if you've got a high in engineering, it's going to offer you engineering stuff. So for example, because we've got all of the supplements that this app currently uses listed, you're going to get a whole load of strange looking stuff. So I've got things like Fleet Liaison Officer, Admiral, apparently I can be a flag officer. But you're going to be looking at things, probably if you want to play, with the exception of Aram, you won't have some of these higher end options. So for the engineers, it might be worth looking to see which one of you wants to be the chief engineer. If there's also rooms there for things like communications officer, if one of you's got a particularly high con. I won't be able to see all of them because obviously it's only showing me ones that are correct for what I've selected for our captain. The only one you won't be able to take definitely will be things like commanding officer, because that is the captain's role. So that's what I will be taking. Or admiral and things like that. It would be good if we could have an XO. That's always interesting. Aaron, you're probably looking at something security-based. I don't think chief of security is open to you.
No. Intelligence officer, I think, makes the most sense, right?
Yeah, okay, so maybe you transfer out of Starfleet intelligence, or you worked with people here. Maybe that's where you're trying to get to, because you said you wanted to get to those things, right?
My mom railroaded me down intelligence. Like of course they put the Cardassian in intelligence, but I want to get away from that. So I've been transferred to just do like actual security. Like I'm one of the guys that Worf calls in when they gotta, wrangle something or protect something or escort something,
Yeah, like TOS, red shirt number 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I like that. Okay, go ahead and go for that.
Yeah, I'm the red shirt that hopefully lives.
You're the red shirt that sticks around for more than one episode, so you then become unkillable. Unless it's a really tense, dramatic moment.
Absolutely.
So, Jordan and Darby, obviously you're both engineers. Where are you thinking of going? Do either of you want to play a chief engineer? Because there is chief engineer, there's also an operations manager, I believe. I don't know which roles you're able to see. But I don't know if anyone has a preference. Because obviously chain of command aboard the ship is a thing that you guys will have to kind of role play through, and whether or not you adhere to it or not is a whole different story. But
yeah, I was thinking of possibly doing something weird here, because I feel like my character's focus in engineering isn't necessarily going to be like it's useful, but it's not necessarily going to put them at like a chief engineer
okay,
position. But sort of leaning into perhaps their other talents and their other areas of expertise in like the insight and the Betazoid abilities. I was looking at ship's councillor, which has come up as an option for me.
yeah, that's absolutely good.
Oh.
I mean, we are playing in TNG, so obviously Deanna Troi is a very key character all the way through that series.
Yep.
She makes a lot of good discoveries. She's very intelligent. So ship's counselors are absolutely good diplomatic situations, and you know it's almost like a secondary thing. So you know you are the ship's counselor, but you are also engineering trained. You do also work within that department. So I think absolutely you could take that.
Not high up in engineering. I'm
Not
sort of.
You're like the third engineer to the left, working away on something. You know, there's a lot of stress in the engineering department too. So having a ship's counselor, like the primary role, being around, you know, it's one of the, I think, one of the biggest departments on a ship is the engineering department. So you've got a lot of people to look after.
You know.
Yeah. You know, how many times does a warp core have to breach before you do actually have to just sit down and talk about it with somebody?
Get a cup of tea. Sit down, you'll be fine.
Cup of tea. The rest of them will fix the warp core breach. It's fine. We'll vent the plasma.
Yeah.
You sit down. And Jordan, that leaves then the chief engineer option open for you if you want it.
I will accept that wholeheartedly.
Okay. So you can go ahead and select that. So you are responsible for ensuring the ship remains operational and functional, and you command the entire engineering department aboard the ship. So you are essentially Cadet Darby's boss.
Oh, and I did not do anything for how to tell people what to do.
But that could be a leadership style. That depends on how you run your engineering department. You might not run it, you know, as a big authoritative figure. Maybe you run it a lot more casual and laid back because that's the kind of crew you have. So that's up to you. I guess then, Max, are you going to be going for the CMO, the Chief Medical Officer?
I believe I shall be.
You don't have to, but you can do if you wish. You could go for science officer if you wanted to. But the Chief Medical Officer obviously plays a very key role. You are one of the few people that can remove a captain from their captaincy or any other senior member of staff because of being unfit to command. You know, in crisis situations, you are the person helping organize that.
Yeah, no, I feel like that. I feel like that fits him. Just given the values that have kind of come up, he's ready to kind of delegate and take charge and do what he needs to do to
maybe
make sure
like
everyone's
recently
healthy.
promoted into CMO.
Yeah.
Maybe as you step on to the USS Initiative, which is the name of the Nova class vessel that this wonderful crew will be on. Maybe this is your first posting as a CMO.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I like it. Then you'll have the option to obviously select your rank. This is completely up to you. See, our captain will hold the rank of captain. But you can pick whatever goes on. Apparently, I also have the option to select fleet captain, which is interesting. But we have all of the supplements in play here. So when you use this app, while our wonderful crew here are selecting their ranks, when you use the app, you can actually select which supplements you want to pull information from. So if you only have the core book, you can just hit the core book and you can select the era as well, and it will only show you options from the core book for that era. If you've got all of the supplements, you can select them all and have everyone play through them, which can be great if you've got players that maybe don't own all of the options, but maybe you do the options and you want them to be able to use those. And as I'm sure everyone will say, this has been pretty easy to go through on this creator. There's no flipping through books. You can kind of just click through, and it will put everything onto a PDF for you. The only thing you have to look up are your talents, just so you know what they do exactly and kind of have a little cheat sheet. But this makes it really, really easy, especially if, like us, you're playing on stream and we all live in different countries where we can't share a physical book. Everyone pick their rank. Oh,
I have not, and I'm not sure which one to pick.
what ranks have you got displaying?
I've got lieutenant, junior grade, lieutenant, lieutenant commander, and commander.
You're probably going to be wanting to look for lieutenant commander or commander if you're the chief engineer.
Perfect, thank you.
No worries. I feel like your character perhaps has been in this role a little bit longer than, say, Max's character, who's kind of new into it. So that's up to you. I'm trying to think. What was Geordie LaForge was like a commander, I think? Someone's going to correct me in chat. I'll be honest, TNG is not my biggest area of Trek expertise. But
I think he started lieutenant and became lieutenant commander, I want to say. I think.
I'm thinking of Data. Data is a commander, or ends up as a commander towards the end.
Yeah.
It depends. It's interesting that nobody's gone for XO, so it'd be cool to see if Raven goes for that maybe when we do character creation for that during the week. But yeah, so you've gone for, what have you gone for then, Jordan?
Lieutenant commander.
Lieutenant commander. And what's your character's name?
Alira Farron.
Okay, so we have Commander Farron. And Cadet Aram, what rank have you gone for?
I only have one option, so I have gone for 4.
Okay, so we have our Cardassian Lieutenant Junior grade. Darby, what rank have you picked for your character, and tell us what's their name?
I have picked Lieutenant Commander, and my character's name is Tristan Odie.
Okay, so we've got a bit of a chain of command going here. So right down at the bottom, we have Aram's character, and we've got your character there, Darby, as Lieutenant Commander. We have Jordan sitting in as a commander. Did you say, sorry, you went for? Or was it Lieutenant Commander?
I did lieutenant commander, but I can change it to commander.
You can go for Lieutenant Commander. That's all good. And
Okay.
then Max, what rank does your CMO hold?
I picked Lieutenant Commander.
Okay.
And his name is Malco Sozin.
Nice. Okay, so maybe there is that promotion up into Commander coming up. Now you've taken this new role once you've kind of got into it. I like it. So we've got no commanders yet, which is interesting. But we do have our captain. The question is, I might put this later on so we can decide, how we want our captain to be named and what gender we would like to have the captain be. That's totally up to choice. We can discuss that in the chat, though. But before we finish up for tonight, there's a couple of questions that I want you to answer, or at least have a think about. Is obviously, we know Max and Aram, your characters know each other. But who is connected to who on the ship? How well do you know each other? So, apart from Max and Aram, Jordan and Darby, have your characters ever met anyone else on this crew before?
I'm pretty young, so probably just Max.
Okay. So you only know
But
Max.
Max, if this thing happened to me in class with my lungs, and Max is this genius healer, basically, Max is probably the one that stabilized me. Maybe Max saved my life.
Yeah. Maybe Max was above you in the academy, and it was like a general, maybe it was a refresher course for Max, and your first introduction was there. Okay, so you two definitely know each other. Jordan, are you new to this crew? Or have you worked with some of them before? You've come over from another ship?
I think that I've definitely worked with some of them before, but being completely honest, the only people that I would know would be people that have crossed paths with me. So, if a character does work in the engineering department, I probably know them, but I don't know that she's close to anybody yet. I think that she probably is, I don't know. she's just different. She just doesn't really connect unless like a specific thing has happened. And I think for her yet, I don't think that's happened yet. She hasn't had that moment. She knows people and who they are and what they do, and but she's very disconnected socially, I think, currently.
So maybe you've transferred from another ship, not immediately recently, but sometime in the recent past. And maybe you've brought a lot of your engineering crew over with you, and then you've got some of the newer crew. Maybe that's, Darby, where you come in. You're a little bit newer to the engineering crew, so you both kind of know each other because you work together. Okay, the last thing I want you to have a think about, and let me know in the chat, because I want to kind of keep this a little bit of a surprise for the people watching, is I want you to let me know somebody that you either work with, or somebody, for those of you that hold a higher rank, somebody that works under you in your department, in your area, and I will build them as a supporting character. So that means that you can call on them, they can come on away missions, they can run research on the ship while you're off doing something else, or if your character isn't present in a scene but they are, you can step into that character's shoes. So have a think about who that person is. You don't necessarily have to be friends with them. They could be, you know, it could be there could be like a little bit of professional rivalry, something like that. Totally up to you. But have a think, and we will create those supporting characters. And anyone can play these supporting characters. Anyone can step into any of their shoes if needed. It's one of the great things about Trek. So if you split the party and suddenly half the people are down off planet, and then a scene's happening up on the ship, and there's 3 people just like, but we're not there, you can take the roles of these supporting characters who are on the ship helping the rest of the crew. So you never have to be out of the scene. Obviously, they have to make sense for these characters to be there at the time. You're not going to find, you know, a command supporting character tinkering around in engineering. But it provides a lot of choice and a lot of option there. But that is pretty much character creation. If you hit the export to PDF button, that will allow you to save your character, and I'll set up something so you can share them with me, and I can nosy through and make notes about all of the ways that I can kind of tie these bits in for you. And for everyone on stream, that is how simple character creation for Star Trek is. That's taken about 3 hours for 4 people to do a complete character creation and a whole chunk of backstory. That's how easy it is with this game, and why I love it. I can't wait to see the dynamics of your crew. I'm sure we're going to have lots of discussion now in our chats off stream. But yeah, how did you guys find that? Everyone good? Everyone happy?
Totally. It was great.
Loved it.
Awesome. I know that coming up after this, we have the very, very exciting premiere of a wonderful stream by Jonathan Fry coming up, which is The Haunting of Seawall Orphanage. I think I've said that right. I'm the worst with names of campaigns. I can never remember the names of my own campaigns. So next week, we're going to be jumping in with this crew on their mission aboard the USS Initiative. That's what they decided to name their ship. A little Nova-class vessel. We'll get to meet the fully fleshed out captain, maybe some of the supporting crew, and find out a bit more about this kind of new, kind of not new Star Trek crew. So thank you so much for coming over and joining us. Let's quickly go around and have a chat, talk about maybe some of the aspects that you liked about character creation, maybe what you're looking forward to, and where we can find you on the internet, and if you've got anything going on that you want to talk about. So let's go around the other way this time. Darby, who are you? Where can we find you on the internet, and how have you found tonight?
Tonight's been amazing. I love this character creation. It's really guided but so free, and that's what I love about it. It sort of it holds your hand but doesn't put you in a box. Like, it's so much fun. I've to be honest, best experience of character creation I've had in a long while. And I'm Darby. I'm an artist. You can find me on Twitter there at Pixel Justice, and yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. I can't wait to see your character develop over the next few weeks. speaking of characters that I cannot wait to see to develop, we have Aram here. How was this? Like, your character just, like, you've got such a great concept. I really loved it.
Yeah, I like characters that go against type. That's pretty much my thing, and I really wanted to play with the Cardassians more and get into them more and see a different side of them. So that was down for it. Like, I'm already thinking about the person that I answer to and how great it would be if the guy in charge of security was an Orion. So one of those green screened individuals, but a dude, because we don't usually see the dudes, it's just the women. So I thought it'd be interesting if one of them was on the ship. So yeah, just like little things like that are really interest me.
Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention before we head over to the next wonderful person, we do have a poll going, I believe, in chat. If not, it's because I've forgotten to mention it. If Charlie, if you want to put that up while we do the last outros, if you can, there is a poll set up happening. So this is which character gets to start with a point of determination, that sweet, sweet meta currency, gets to start with an extra point next week to kickstart the session. So somebody gets everyone starts with 1, and they're difficult to earn, and they provide a big bonus. So it's up to you who gets that. And there is also a competition going in the chat for a giveaway for a Star Trek PDF. So please make sure you go ahead and type in !loot to enter that for your chance to win the PDF. I believe is that for a core book, Charlie? It doesn't say in chat. I would assume so. I'm sure Charlie can post it in the chat. But yeah, moving on to our chief engineer, who I can't wait to see in action. It's the other way on this screen. Here we go. Jordan, who are you? Where can we find you on the internet? And how was this for you?
Hi. Okay, this is so cool. And I really loved how I think the hardest part about TTRPG for me is those things like in D&D you have your bonds and ideals and things like that, and I always get lost in that, and so having them integrated into the process to directly connect and correlate with things was phenomenal. I loved it. But I am Jordan, aka Sassy with Sander, on every social media. You can find me on YouTube making music, Fate and the Fable Maidens as Adina, and Jam Game Streams, where I stream video games with my best friend. And that are my projects. And I'll be opening a cosplay shop soon, so check it out.
Also, welcome in Susie and the party of raiders who have come to join us. We are just wrapping up. We've had some very intense, awesome character creation, but it's awesome to have you as you get to hear all about the wonderful people as we finish up with tonight. Susie is wonderful. Susie is also a DM over here on Encounter Roleplay, so you should definitely go and check her out. Moving over to people that you should definitely go and check out. Max, this side. I'm not used to the flip screen. How are we doing?
Yeah.
How is this for you? Where can we find you on the internet?
So this was incredible. This was probably one of my favorite ways to create a character that I've ever encountered, and I loved every second of it. Just coming up with the values and forcing myself to be creative in a weird way. But I'm so excited. This is going to be great. But you can find me all over the internet at MaximusJ07. I stream occasionally on my Twitch channel. You can also find me over on Twitter there, where I talk about a lot of random things, including tabletop role-playing games, because they're amazing and everyone should play them. But yeah, that's me.
So if you want to see more of the wonderful crew that I get to GM here for, please make sure go and check them out on their social medias. I am Virginia. I make, play, and publish tabletop role-playing games. I actually work for the company that makes Star Trek Adventures. I've been responsible for things like Borg triple player characters and Borg triple NPCs. But I do a bunch of my own stuff. You can find me on Twitter and Twitch at Tabletop Horde. At the minute, I'm doing a run-through of the classic Tomb Raider games every Wednesday from 9 p.m. UK, which is 4 p.m. Eastern. So please come and check me out there. Say hi to me on Twitter. It's where I post most of the things. It would be awesome to come and see you. And I'm really looking forward to next week. I really love all of your characters. I can't wait to see what your crew dynamic's going to be. I am so excited. I love running Star Trek. Like, genuinely, it's one of my favorite systems. So getting to have, like, everyone's been so enthusiastic, and I love it. And nothing makes me happier as a GM than players that just, like, really want to get into it. A couple more things before we say goodbye. Make sure you stick around here. Don't go anywhere after this stream ends, because coming up afterwards, we have the awesome premiere of The Haunting of Seawall Orphanage, designed by Jonathan Fry. We have Charlie on, Ray, Travis, Lydia, Josh, and Tommy. So please make sure you stick around. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be fantastic. I know I'm going to be sticking around to watch it. And if you've never seen Jonathan Fry roleplay, you need to stick around and watch, because he's incredible. As are the rest of the cast. You can also check out some other stuff over here. So obviously come back next Friday at the same time to see us start our adventure. But on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. UK, which is 4 p.m. EST, there is a Fall of London game happening, which is Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, that is, I believe, being GM'd by Will. That has got a whole bunch of incredible people on it. I can't name all of the cast off the top of my head, so I'm not going to try. But you should come and check that out on a Tuesday night and enjoy that. The Fall of London Chronicle has not long come out and been released. I think it's on pre-order right now. You can check it out at Modifius.com. And it's the London-based chronicle for the Vampire Masquerade 5th edition rules. So definitely go and watch it. It looks like there is a tie on the between Darby, Aram, and Jordan, each of which have got 4 votes. So in which case, I'm going to do GM logic, and hopefully nobody tells me off for this, but you're all going to start with an extra point of determination, because if 3 out of 4 of you have got it, I can't leave one of you out. That's just how it works. So well done, chat. You managed to build enough of a tie that they all get something awesome for next week. But I think as long as I haven't missed anything tonight, that is pretty much it from us. Please stick around to watch the premiere of the awesome RPG coming after this. And thank you so much to all of our sponsors again. That is, I believe, Zweihander, that is Fantasy Grounds, World Anvil, and Wayland Games. For helping make lots of this possible. And I think that's pretty much it for us tonight. Please come back next week and see us. Please, please stick around for the show coming directly after this one. But otherwise, we will see you next week as we boldly go where no crew have gone before.
See you.